On item number 4, city employee recognitions and introductions, and turn it over to Ms. Kane.
Is it on? The first item under employee recognitions and employee introductions, I'm going to turn over to Chief Eberhard.
Thank you. So, Council, I wanted to bring in our newest officer, Jason Smith, and introduce him to the council. There we go. Again, it's Jason Smith. Sorry, we lost the first part of that. He comes to us, he had a little bit of law enforcement experience years ago up north. We won't hold that against him. Then he was in a private practice. He had his own insurance company, then decided to pursue his career in law enforcement, graduated recently, and we brought him on board. So he is in his phase 1 of FTO, doing well, and we look forward to him getting out on the street by himself here pretty soon.
Thank you, Chief. Officer Smith, welcome. Normally, under different circumstances, we'd all shake your hand and welcome you, but obviously we can't do that tonight. But know that we're all excited to have you on the team. Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay. The next item is we received a thank you from Jim Mueller. He thanks everyone in the water department for their great work during this crazy weather, and in reference to our weather emergency that we had week before last. And he further stated he really appreciated the perfect service in times like these. The second thank you we received was for our accounting assistant, Jacqueline Moreno. She was answering the phone during the weather emergency, and she received a phone call from Mr. McGrath. And he stated that Dwayne had been out to his residence twice that day to assist him and did an awesome job, and he wanted to make sure that Dwayne was recognized for his hard work. The third thank you we received was from Ms. Fox, and she called in about her backflow leaking, and she wanted to give a quick thank you for the prompt return call from the lady that called her back. Obviously, one of the ladies in the front office that was answering phones remotely during the weather emergency. She said that she was extremely kind and courteous. And the next item is recognition of employee anniversaries for the month of March. First one is Matthew McKenzie, 1 year. Then we have Joe Timke, 4 years. Then we have Karen Ford, 6 years. And Steve Dennis, 6 years. And last but not least, Eric Lohman, 14 years. Congratulations.
We'll be talking about the team in a minute, but we couldn't do what we do without those great people. And it's 14 years for Eric. Awesome. Anything else?
No, sir, that's all I had.
Moving on, item number 5, citizen comments. Limited to 3 minutes on this one. I have 3 people that signed up. And if you did not sign up and you would like to speak, remember at the end of the council meeting, we also have a period that you don't have to sign up. And it can be based on things that you hear or anything else you want to be heard. So without further ado, the first person I have on the list is Mr. Tony Frasco.
On. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Lisa and the mayor for their prayers. Still choking. When you do good, and the police did good, they came and helped. But when you do bad, I felt as though the council let us down. If I didn't have a generator in this crisis I just dealt with, my family was out there, it was freezing. I had broken water lines, and then I was told that the generators didn't work. And I ran part of the CD, and you people let us down. When you do good, I'll praise you to the hilt. When you do bad, you let us down. We were freezing, and old people were freezing, and I'm an old fart, so I was freezing. So you did nothing to help us. We didn't have the generators. I had 5 generators in my town. My men started them every 2 weeks. So you did nothing to help us. If you would have had heat and cots like I had, you could have put people up here. You know, Lisa's husband was gracious to open up his auto place, but how did we know that? We had no electric. We had no heat, and we were devastated, and my heart bleeds for them. I took 4 oaths of office, not just for the Constitution, but for the people. I fought for the people. I worked for the people. And I feel you didn't do your job. Don't tell me you didn't get the generator started, because I don't want to hear it, because I got my generator started. My borough halls, my fire department, my pumping stations, everything was working. Every 2 weeks, they started them. They had standing orders. And I worry about the stuff hitting the fan now. We'll be at a loss. So, you know, when you do good, I'll praise you to the hilt. When you do bad, then I'm going to damn you to the hilt. So I think you should get busy and it's Homeland Security now. I'm a dinosaur with civil defense then. But you should have food, cots, and generators working. I don't want to hear that they're not working. That to me is nonsense. So I want you to do something, because emergencies don't come knocking at the door. They come suddenly. This was planned and we weren't ready. We knew about this. So we have to be ready 24/7. And in the world we live in now, it's going to be every man for themselves like it was with no electric. So please, set something up, set a committee up, have people in charge of getting things done and making sure that generators are working so we can take care of all the people in town. And again, thank you to the police department. They work great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Mr. Ken Kniper.
Ken Kniper, 8891 Shanetall Road. The last snowstorm of any consequence was in 1985 that we had in San Antonio, and we got 13 inches. Nobody lost power, but ERCOT was not controlling the grid. The state was not in charge of our electricity. The city cannot be in charge of electric grid if we don't have our own power company. Maybe that's something the citizens will want you to get into. I don't know. They don't like you running the water company. Maybe you need an electric company. I wouldn't think that. So we did not lose power in 1985 because ERCOT wasn't in charge. They didn't have rolling blackouts. I wasn't in the city when the snowstorm hit. I was at Canyon Lake. I was not notified when the water in our unit went out. I got 5 minutes, I didn't get noticed for the first time or the second time. And I paid good money to have my timeshares. We had to move units in the dark, 2 old people in the snow and ice with no help. So, you know, we made it, we survived. And when we were at the resort, people tried to take care and they did things for others. The high school would have probably opened up, but their plumbing was frozen. The water lines to the bathrooms were frozen. I found this out yesterday because I went to a baseball game and I talked to Mr. Deloche, the principal. They had no water. Power was intermittent, not constant. So I don't know. Who is to blame? Why wasn't ERCOT ready when they told the governor they were ready? To hold you accountable for everything, I don't think is fair. I called from the lake to have my water cut off in front of my house because the water pipe across my attic froze in the garage. We got home on Friday and we found there was no broken pipe. We called, we thought it out, thanks to a friend who lent me a heater, and we found another heater, a space heater in the attic. We plugged them both in. We thawed out our pipe, turned on the water pressure, and it came on. When we called early in the day, Mr. Lohman did stop by on check on us, and when he found out we had water again, let me tell you, I think my wife and I lost 10 pounds apiece from taking a nice hot shower. The city was responsible, and it surprised me when I heard that the young ladies were working from home. They couldn't work up here because there was no power even in the building. Why? Why didn't CPS supply us? San Antonio can't even get that answer. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Mr. Rob Erickson.
Thanks. Rob Erickson, 20203 Van Ness Circle. Hello, council. It's good to see you all again. It's been a while. I've missed you. I want to take a couple minutes just to say thank you to everyone that came out last Saturday to help pick up trash and debris along FM 2252. We had over 30 student athletes and coaches from the track and field and the basketball teams from Davenport High School. Go Wolves. They were out there helping in the early morning fog and the cold. We also had other family members and residents of Garden Ridge out there to help keep our roadways beautiful. There were 45 of us total. We filled 51 bags of trash and logged over 140 hours of community service. 51 bags of trash is our new one-day record, by the way. That's a lot of trash. In the nearly 2.5 years since the Families of Garden Ridge Adopt a Highway program was founded, we have filled at least 25 bags of trash quarterly and logged more than 430 hours of community service and filled well over 250 bags of trash. So thank you so much. I want to publicly thank the student athletes and coaches from Davenport High School, along with Stephanie and Caroline, the Fox family from New Zealand, and Lisa and Bailey. I also want to thank Northeast Bible Church for always allowing us to stage out of their front parking lot once every 3 months. A big thanks to Marissa and Kat from the city for always finding us a spot in the grapevine to advertise, as well as a thanks to Mayor Thompson for always giving us a couple days on the sign. It really helps, Larry. Thanks. I also want to personally thank those volunteers that always find time every 3 months to come out, no matter what their schedule is, and help us out. Specifically, that's thanks to a lot of members of the Garden Ridge Lions Club, Dr. Maggie Pelzinski and her son Elliot, my wife Megan, and my son Judge, Bruce Phillips, Richard Holloway, and as always, Miss Linda Potts for her tireless efforts to keep our roadways pristine. Our next pickup is scheduled for Saturday, April 24th from 8 to 11, starting at Northeast Bible Church. We're responsible for the 2-mile stretch from FM 3009 all the way down to Marbach, both sides of the highway. So if you have the time and the wherewithal, come on out and help us out. Thanks so much. Great to see you.
Thanks, sir. Moving on to item number 6, consent agenda. Have 3 items in the consent agenda sent to you. And would anyone like anything pulled from the consent agenda? And absent anything being pulled, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as published?
I move to approve the consent agenda as posted.
Place 2 with a motion to approve. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second, place 1. Any further discussion? Left side, right side. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It is unanimous. Passed the consent agenda. Moving on to item number 7, approval of authorizations. Discussion, consideration, and action. Item A, number 1, is to discuss the winter weather emergency response. So I'll tell you that what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a timeline of what happened and what the actions that were taken by the city, what they were, where they were, and kind of a summary after that. In some of the, and I'm going to do it chronologically, I'll detail the dates. When I do that, I'll give a couple of things to give a little perspective, because what I found is after a while, the days started running together. And then after we do that and we have an action item that's on the agenda, we'll be turning to the department reports. And in the departmental reports, the department heads will have the opportunity to amplify anything that's in their report, but also to discuss anything they want to discuss or believe needs to be discussed regarding the things that I'm talking about with the storm. So, and after I go through this, I have the opportunity for all of council to add to any of these things. So first of all, again, going through the timeline, Tuesday the 9th, an interesting thing that was released was ERCOT had a board meeting, and in that board meeting, during the proceedings, the chair mentioned that pretty frigid temperatures were coming our way. The discussion lasted for less than 40 seconds, and they never talked about the weather again. So something that has caused at least 6 ERCOT board members to resign, the legislature in Austin to have them testify and to examine what happened, the Public Utilities Commission commissioner resigning, and a lot of those folks are testifying as well. It all started with a 40-second discussion, and apparently they weren't taking it very seriously. The next day, CPS put out a notice and said they're preparing for severe weather and a possibility of outages. When we saw that happening, we saw the weather forecast. All the city department heads were notified to prepare, to say if they needed anything, and to keep each other informed. So that started Wednesday the 10th. On Thursday, we started seeing that the roads were getting bad in the area, and schools were starting to be announced as being closed in the area as well. On that day, the City Hall generator was tested and serviced by a generator contractor. We wanted to make sure that our generators were up and running, and you see this was, as I said, on the 11th. That, by the way, is a generator we'll talk about in a little while. Then on the 12th, the Texas governor declared a disaster, and the roads started really freezing up. The next day, more freezing rain, and that's when our public works folks started sanding the roads and keeping us safe out there. On Sunday, the 14th, ERCOT starts to threaten rolling outages. It'll happen over the next couple of days. As they said, rolling outages over the next couple of days. Major roads all around the area and overpasses and everything were being closed. It snowed that night, and our county then went into a state of emergency. That night is when we started getting our SCADA alarms and our transducers were freezing. And what that means in basic terms is our eyes and ears for our well sites were starting to fail. In other words, without being there, looking at the pumps, looking at the lube lines, looking at everything to make sure it's running, we had no way of knowing necessarily what was going on. And that's a significant thing, because that SCADA not only enables us to monitor, to acquire data, but also to control. And so we started losing some of that. We had Dwayne, one of our water workers, then because we needed to keep eyes on, he stayed overnight. And at that point, all 3 well sites that we are normally operating, out of the 4, all 3 well sites were operating. Monday, the 15th, it snowed early that morning, and the freeze really started to set in. That's the time that we had the lowest recorded temperature of the whole episode of the storm. It got down to 9 degrees. ERCOT blackouts started to begin at that time. The city administrator and I began calling CPS. CPS never answered me. I called multiple times, left multiple voicemails, and I didn't get an answer from our representative till the next day. If you all don't know, we actually have an identified representative at CPS that we, the leadership of the city, can go to, kind of our belly button, to go, what's going on? And it's everything. It's policy things. It's things that, it's not just under emergencies like this. Our city administrator was pretty persistent. over 40 texts and nearly half a dozen phone calls to insist, and the two of us were insisting that these were not rolling blackouts. But no matter how much we told them that we were getting power for 2 to 3 minutes at a time, every 20 to 40 minutes, they insisted that they were rolling blackouts. And you've seen all the things in the news about, they said they were just energizing the circuits to keep them alive. But what I told our rep was that it basically was salt in the wound. It would have been better, all would have been better off if they would have left it off for a while, turned it on for a while, left it off for a while, but that's not what they were doing, but we couldn't get answers. City administrator gave the CPS rep, when she finally did get a hold of her, the addresses of our critical infrastructure, particularly the water sites, the water well sites, and if a lot of people have talked a lot about the generator, and I'll talk a little bit more, but if you don't know, that generator that's behind PD is for energizing PD and basically right where we're sitting. It doesn't go any farther. It's not big enough and powerful enough to be able to energize the entire city hall. But the critical infrastructure, the emergency services is what we have that for. But we had no power. And that was one of the things that we tried to beat on CPS, that we had no power, not only in our city, but at our critical infrastructure, emergency services, well sites, those kind of things. Then I actually tried to call and contact our previous point of contact, who used to be really very responsive. She retired, but she had said if I ever need anything to contact her. That didn't work either. In fact, she has not yet responded, and I think I understand why. Also, we had a former CPS executive that lives here in town talk to us and say, I recommend you call the leadership of CPS, not just your representative. And I tried it half a dozen times. Our city administrator tried even more, and we both had the same result of just getting passed around and pushing buttons and voicemails, and we never did get hold of anybody. The one thing that we tried to get through to them is that we had places that needed to be energized, we needed to get answers, and we needed them to tell us why a rolling blackout was 2 to 3 minutes long. There were places that had power at times, and there was no rhyme or reason to it. Now, we all know there's some places that are near hospitals and all that will be on a grid and have power, but in the city, we couldn't, there was no rhyme or reason. And the representative, when I finally did communicate with her, I found out that she was having trouble communicating for 2 reasons. One, because they had pulled the plug on a lot of the other representatives, and she ended up being the representative for everybody in the area. And the other is that she didn't have power either. The CPS representative that was supposed to be doing this didn't have power herself. So it was the beginning of a bad situation that we, to this day, still don't have answers, and frankly, neither does our state legislature. And then closer to home, our answering service, that if you call after hours on weekends, you get them, and then it gets farmed to our folks. They started melting down. And I can tell you, I had to deal with something else that had an answering service, and it was the same result, because all the answering services that are professional answering services work for various companies and entities were all just completely swamped. And our answering service melted down to the point where we took it away from them, and Mr. Steinmetz, Steve, and his wife Kelly, who is in that business, ended up taking over the early afternoon on Monday and did it, and took phone calls all night. That was huge, because we had a lot of people that when they would finally get through saying, I've been calling, I've been put on hold, I left a message, we never got the messages, and certainly that was entirely unacceptable, because our first responsibility after maintaining the infrastructure that we have control over is to respond to citizens and make sure that they can get a hold of us if they need to. At that point, our well sites were freezing. And equipment and service equipment at the well sites, as well as the wells themselves and the pipes, were freezing. We'd thaw them out, they'd freeze again. Eventually, they all froze, and every well site we had went offline. And that lasted for about 12 hours. The good news is that one of the highlights of our system is not only redundancy in source and redundancy in transmission, but also the ability of our storage. We have a robust storage that's also distributed, and through the distributed and robust storage, that 12 hours wasn't a problem. We had plenty of treated, safe water that we could still continue to deliver to customers, and that's what we did as we continued to work on our system. Again, Dwayne remained overnight to try to keep thaw on at least one of the well sites. Tuesday, freeze continues, ERCOT outages continue, and this is now, we're into day 2 solid of this. The well site at 2252, which was what we were trying to keep going, the chlorine system froze. You can see some of the lines here. That's important because we're not going to pull water out of the ground and put it into our storage tanks for our customers unless we can keep the chlorine into it and maintain the safety of the water. We rebuilt that system, thawed it, insulated it, and now at that point, we got 2252, well site 2252 running. As you can see, you see the broken lines there. Jacob, Eric, and Jack remained overnight. And at the same time, knowing now that that was our only well site, critical infrastructure and what our citizens were depending on and what we had control over, discussions with the PD, we increased the PD monitoring of that well site because we had some people that were doing some mischief around the city, and that we could not afford to have that well site be an issue. Also, at this point, our generator behind this building wasn't operating. Yes, the generator that less than a week before, we had a clean bill of health, service, and testing done by a professional, the company that does our generators. But it wasn't running, and we couldn't figure out why. Luckily, we have a husband of one of our PD employees who is a generator expert and technician and a Power Pro person who spent the better part of the day with us out there, and we tried everything. We tried to heat the block. We tried to heat the heater that's supposed to heat the block. We heated up the oil. We did all kinds of things, and I'll tell you, he was amazing. He didn't have to be out there, but and it was the coldest day we had. And he did a fantastic job helping us to start to figure out what we needed to do to keep it running. Eventually, we figured out that, and we didn't really know why at the time, but there was a switch that was spring-loading to a position, but if we held it away from the spring load, we could keep the generator running. And through talking to him and some other generator people, we ascertained that we probably wouldn't make the generator catastrophically fail, so we wired and propped the switch to keep the generator running at that point. That necessitated now a pretty much a suicide watch on the generator, and about every hour or less, whoever was on watch, and I'll talk about all that in a minute, but whether it was a water person or a public works person would go to the generator to ensure that it was still running and it still wasn't a problem because we had kind of circumvented something on the generator. And what you see here is at 2252 well site. Yeah, that's a dog kennel that we use to insulate some of the lines, and that's actually the lube line. To make sure that it wouldn't freeze anymore. And on the right side, a box that made to insulate the delivery of the chlorine. These are things that nobody's ever thought about before. They had insulation on them, but clearly this was unprecedented, and a little bit of ingenuity on our folks' part to keep these things insulated and as warm as we could. So then what happens is we're concerned also with responding to people that are calling. Admin had the phones from 8 to 5 that day, and then Stephen and his wife Kelly again took the phones that night. And Councilwoman Swint can talk about this more in a minute, but then Councilwoman Swint engaged with Garden Ridge Elementary School and Comal ISD to try to get the school that was brightly lit to be a warming station, and through back and forth, the ultimate answer was no. And ma'am, you can talk about that more later if you'd like. In the meantime, Triumphant Lutheran Church that day established a warming station from 2 to 6. Great option because you didn't have to go up any hills, and they got a big kitchen, and they had staff that they were willing to man it. But I went by there twice during that period of 2 to 6, and I never saw anybody there. And so then I talked to Triumphant Lutheran Church leadership this week, and I asked them, and come to find out, I was the only person that ever went to the warming station at Triumphant Lutheran Church. Ms. Spencer will talk about how we had that on Nextdoor and Civic Plus and Facebook and a few other places to try to keep people informed on that. But, you know, a lot of people we're communicating with don't even have electricity, and we didn't have electricity either. Yeah, so Triumphant Lutheran Church, really appreciate that they stepped up to try to help the community, and they did that, in fact, 2 days in a row. So now moving on to Wednesday. By now, 2.8 million people in Texas don't have power. SAWS goes into a boil water notice. People are starting to ask if we're doing the same thing, and no. In fact, admin put out a notice on Nextdoor, Civic Plus, Facebook, and a bunch of other places to tell people, no, we were not boiling water. We did not have to boil water. We still had clean, safe water. The well site at 2252, the lube lines were freezing, and this is what it looks like when it breaks, and a lube line is absolutely critical to that pump operating. So we insulated them, and you actually saw some of the insulation we did on that to keep the well site running. We were able with the 2 wells at that well site running to increase our storage to give us a little bit more buffer, but now the next problem we had was that diesel was at a premium, and diesel providers were either out or they were elsewhere, and we resorted to sending our public works and water folks to stand in line with cans to fill diesel in cans to bring them back to be able to pour them into the generators. That was the only thing between us having water and not having water. Because again, we still were struggling with CPS to try to convince them that these were critical sites that needed to have electricity, and we were getting nowhere with that. Stephen Stanley, Eric, and Jack cycled shifts, and we had people remain overnight, and Jacob stayed very close to be able to make sure that we could keep all this stuff running, because again, our SCADA is not telling us what's going on necessarily. We have to keep eyeballs on at all time. Admin now has taken the phones 24/7 beginning at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they took the phones all the way through till Monday the 22nd at 5 p.m. 6 straight days, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with the whole period, I should say, for 6 days. Admin now is answering phones, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. Triumphant Lutheran Church established a warming station again, 12 to 4, and I was the only person that showed up. And then on Thursday, it snowed again in the morning. ERCOT ended the rolling blackouts, and now pretty much everybody in the city had power. Everybody that I visited or talked to had power, but now the news starts to come out that this was the worst blackout since the huge blackouts that happened up in the Northeast 17 years ago, and obviously deadly and costing them billions. We got, as we started to thaw a little bit, we got the SCADA up and running, which is a big deal. Started to thaw some pipes. Jacob and Dwayne stayed here from 8 to 8 to ensure that our 2252 well site, the only site still operating, was operating because we put a pretty heavy emphasis on we didn't have any backups at that time, and we had to do everything we could to keep that running. Stephen and Stanley were the ones that were made overnight that night. And then city, and she said, I can tell you this, but just for perspective, on Thursday is when our city administrator was admitted to the hospital for emergency surgery, and we didn't see her again until this week, this past Monday. It was all we could to keep her from staying off the phone while she was on painkillers. But on Friday, the 19th, warmer temperatures started to happen, and after the last night of freezing temperatures, the final tally was 106 hours of below freezing, longest in 70 years around here. Municipal water site, this is what the piping for the chlorine line looked like. It's shattered from all the freezing, but we repaired and insulated those lines, and we got the municipal well site up and running. We also had to remove and replace the Shanethal valves. Now, for perspective, these are huge foundry valves that, if you take the valve and the casing and everything, it's not even a two-person lift. They're really, really big, robust, and heavy, and you see how these things cracked. That's the force of this freezing that we experienced. But by that day, we ordered a few more, and we started installing those, and we got that site up and running, and we started to fill up our storage because we were still saying that no matter what happens, we need to make sure that if we lose the sites again, we'll be able to supply. And at that time, by then, we have supply for at least a couple days without even drawing a drop out of the ground. Very important. At that time, we were asked if the city could provide water to anybody that didn't have it because they had to shut off their water because of leaks that they had in their house. We set up a water station, and up until today, 2 people came to the water station and got water. So that's the layout from Tuesday to Friday. Some things I want to highlight. What was really important was we needed to prioritize the citizens receiving services that we had control over. It was monumentally horrible that people didn't have electricity, but make no mistake, when the mayor of the 7th largest city of the United States is all over the place trying to get CPS to get electricity, and he can't get it, Garden Ridge isn't getting it either. And so we kept calling, and we still don't have any answers, and we still don't understand what the prioritization is, but there's a lot of examination that still has to happen. But we needed to concentrate on what we had control of, and what we had control over is water. And if anybody's ever heard me talk about electricity and water, not to diminish the importance of electricity, because clearly when it's 7 degrees, electricity is pretty darn important. But if you think about it, if you come home and you flip on your light switch and the lights don't come on, you go, oh, what's going on with the electricity? If you walk into your house and you turn on your water and the water doesn't come out, you have a little bit of a panic attack and goes, what's going on with my water? That's what we had control over, and we were bound and determined that no matter what, people were going to have safe, clean, and available water, and our team was very successful doing that. I can tell you that every day I saw extraordinary demonstrations of leadership and dedication from the team that we have in Garden Ridge. Public Works and Water became one team, and people are saying, thank you to Water, and I just want everybody to know that we sat down and deliberately said there was no difference. And I can tell you we're blessed because some of our Public Works people also have water experience, so it was even easier for us to just say we're one team. We sat down, we talked about what our priorities were, we racked and stacked the priorities. Number 1 was water, beyond security and the safety of our community. It was water, it was roads, it was that kind of thing. And I can tell you that the way that you couldn't tell the difference. You absolutely couldn't tell the difference between a Public Works person and a water person. And in fact, a lot of times when people would call and say, I need some help with a line or what's going on, how come I don't have water, the people that were responding were actually Public Works people, but they knew a lot about the water and they could help. They also would be driving around and they'd see water spurting out of a backflow device or something to that effect, and they'd stop and they'd help and they'd work on it. But tired, cold employees maintaining professionalism in some pretty serious situations, blowing snow and all that, and we received many, many, many kudos, and we appreciate that. The team of Public Works and Water assisted roughly 100 people with water leaks and service lines, fixtures, backflows, those kind of things. They shut off when was needed and when was requested by the folks at their homes. And there was an issue where many of the people that needed their water cut off found out they couldn't cut off their water and they needed the city to cut off the water. And for those that may not know, Ordinance 54, paragraph 1305 states that all of us have to have a service side, our side of the meter, shut-off that we can do ourselves. That is in the current ordinance, but it's been a requirement in ordinances for over 20 years in the city. And I tell you that because we actually have had experience with stumbling on this and reminding people to do it. So this is a good opportunity to start to talk this up some more. But if you have a leak, to be able to run out to your front yard or wherever your stuff is and to be able to turn it off right away is something that is important. At that point, we also, during this, we mandated two-person operations in the field. Concerned that we need to keep an eye on each other and didn't want to have somebody out at a well site at 3 a.m. Fall and either be knocked unconscious or be pinned under something and then we don't find them till the next day. That would have been horrific. So it was two-person control for the majority of the time, and we also maintained a minimum of 2 people starting on Tuesday for 24/7 here. And that means that we had people sleeping in Public Works hallway, sleeping in their offices, in trucks, any place they could sleep. And remember, Public Works did not have electricity either. We had one of the well site generators giving us literally an extension cord all the way to Public Works to try. And one of the things, ma'am, that you would be very interested in is one of the things that we made sure that we kept running was a heater with the dogs. And I personally visited the dogs every day, and they fared very well during this. All the while, keep in mind that as everything I just told you, water was down 2 people, and Public Works was down 1 person. So they're down people, and they're still managing to keep 24/7 operations and do and respond to all of these calls and keep the water flowing. So bottom line, no water outages in the city, no boil notices, always maintain clean, safe water. And for perspective, SAWS and everybody they supplied, be it San Antonio and then some of the cities around here as well, SAWS, NBU, Cibolo, Fair Oaks, Green Valley, San Marcos, Kyle Butte, Canyon Lake, Castroville, on and on and on, all of those had either low pressure and boil water notices or no water for a while and had real serious issues. I'm intensely proud of that team and what they did to ensure that people had water the whole time. It doesn't give them electricity, I know that, but it gave them what we had control over. Next thing is the police department monitoring the critical infrastructures because it was all we had. They had to deal with some mischief calls. They were dispatched nearly 20 times for welfare checks, but they checked on many, many more people without being dispatched for the welfare checks. And we even had some people sleep in PD to ensure that the road conditions weren't going to keep them from getting back in to be able to perform their duty as officers. The PD, and another thing, I'll show you a teamwork kind of thing and something that I saw firsthand how much it was appreciated. The PD leadership, the chief and lieutenant, were cooking food and bringing it into PD and bringing in Public Works and water folks to eat. And at one point I saw a couple of the guys that had been working long hours and they were very cold. They came down here and ate, and when they went back up to Public Works, they walked in where we were having a discussion and touched their bellies and said, man, we really appreciate what they did for us. So the chief is probably tired of me thanking him, but it was a really big deal, and everybody really appreciated it. But a high degree of public safety and security is maintained, and they did it in the face of the obvious situation with no power, and we even had some other things that he can talk about with some vehicles. All admin and finance stepped up to ensure that someone was answering the phones 24/7. We stopped forwarding the underperforming answering service. We stopped forwarding to them. So to give you a perspective, the average call volume in a week is usually about 78 calls. The average in a month is about 379. The admin team during that 6 days fielded 614 calls. Shannon, Kat, Michelle, and Marissa, and Jack from finance were all answering phones even when they didn't have power themselves. None of them were here. They were in their cars many times, charging their phones because that personal phone they had was the way they were talking to our citizens in Garden Ridge, and they didn't have power in their homes to be able to charge their phones. So you see one of our folks is sitting in her car, warming up, and she's answering phones. And that was, like I said, 24/7 for 614 calls, a absolutely critical and monumental task that we can't thank them enough. Finance, working the phones as well, and then also didn't miss a beat because, still got to pay the bills. And moreover, all these hardworking people, it was payroll time. And we needed to make sure that although we were in the middle of all this stuff, that they still got paid. And so finance, working from home when she had a little bit of power, and then running to other places to include the city administrator's office, or house, to try to get the payroll done, and they did, and got a lot of stuff done that if they didn't, we would have all understood, but they did. And I want to highlight another thing that I made some subtle mentions to, but it's a really big deal, and that is that in the midst of all this, our Garden Ridge team had the families behind them in more ways than one. We had folks answering the phones that don't even work for us. We had folks working on generators. Excuse me, Jill's husband, Chris Wolzen, he was the guy that was out there in the and I'm telling you, personal experience, it was really cold, windy, blowing ice, and he never once complained, and instead, he was just bound and determined to figure out a way to get that generator running, and just, we're talking families here. Also families making food, and then, of course, holding down the home front when there was a lot of pressure on the people that were here doing all this because their families were home and they didn't have power, and in many cases, they didn't have water, too. So the sacrifices and the dedication from the folks that we have on our team here was just tremendous. I can tell you, I watched and experienced a lot of this firsthand, and I have, we should throw around a lot of compliments, but I don't know what words to use to tell you that this isn't throwing around compliments, but this is to tell you, council, that it was phenomenal. That, they didn't complain. Not a one of them ever said, I'm really tired, I just want to go home. And the leadership was involved in this, and they knew that, and they did a superb job of what we had control over. So, a good question would be, what do we do next? We have a lot of work to do, of course. We've already started to collect and discuss the lessons. We have a planned series of meetings to determine what worked, what didn't work, what and why. Talk about equipment, supplies, coordination, future budget items, that kind of thing, and priorities. Ms. Spencer is going to talk communications, but could we work any other modes and methods, especially if people don't even have electricity, and work the responsibilities to keep citizens better informed. We also, coordination with our emergency management coordinator. I'm the emergency management director, but our coordinator and where everything flows from is actually the county. We don't have an emergency management team here. We have the people that did all the things that you heard. And our plans all sprout from the county plans, the Comal County Hazard Mitigation Plan and everything that surrounds it. We, the city, are signatories to it. The last time I signed one was June 6th of 2018. So they are our emergency managers. They are the people that help us get training and all those kinds of things. The one thing I'll say is I did talk to them a few times, and one thing I found out was they actually had a lot more problems than we did. They were having a lot of problems with water. I mentioned NBU, but there were boil notices. There were no water. They had a lot of problems with icing, road icing, bridge icing, and lots of accidents. Lots of bad stuff was happening, and they were pretty overwhelmed. Again, and I've talked to them since, and we all agree that we can talk about what we can do next time, and in fact, we will. After talking to Triumphant Lutheran Church about their warming station, it was interesting. We both kind of came to the conclusion that maybe we can partner stronger in the future. And so we intend to work together to have some facilities that are distributed, frankly, because they had power, so along the different grid areas of our city, but also with labor and with resources, and they're excited about it. And over the coming months, also going to be working with any of the other organizations in the city that would want to be part of this. And the other thing is that I've talked to the Lions leadership. And this is the second time we've had something happen where we talked about it, but it wasn't solidified, and we hadn't really thought it out much. But this time we've committed that we want to talk about exploring having some kind of possibly a response team in the Lions, because you got a group of people that their motto is they serve, and they are very anxious to serve. And a lot of them are mobile enough and have the resources that they can go out and help people if they need to be helped. And we broached that subject back when COVID started to help people shop. But the leadership, by the way, the response team is my words, not the Lions' words. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but already been talking to the leadership to see what we can do to integrate them into what we do. So overall, in spite of the extreme difficulty of the electricity issues, we were pretty fortunate that we got out of this in basically one piece, and it gives us an opportunity now to examine what we did right, what we could have done better, and to improve. And we're blessed to have that opportunity. We, the staff and your leadership, look forward to working on this, bringing to you all some progress reports, and then, of course, in budget season also, we'll be talking if there's things, now keep in mind, a generator like the one that's in the back of is a six-figure item. That's not, saying we're going to have generators like that all over the place is not something you take lightly, particularly if you're talking six figures and something that you may not use very often. So that's my chronology and summary. I know it was long, but I thought there was a lot that I wanted you to be aware of if you weren't, and to emphasize some stuff. What I'd like to do now is, before we go to an action item that we have regarding the water bills, is I'd like to start over on the right side and just go down the line, and anything you have to offer, any experience you had, any questions, anything you have. Keep in mind also that after that action, we'll be turning to the department heads, and they'll have some opportunity to talk about some of their stuff as well. So starting with Mayor Pro Tem McCall.
Yeah, I got a couple questions. First of all, I really appreciate that update. It was very complete, and I kept thinking, did he miss anything? And there's only one thing he missed, and I'll tell you what that was later. But and I know the rest of City Council will say the same thing, and that is that we really appreciate the effort by the employees. It was just incredible, because it was those few days, 4 or 5 days that it was freezing cold and we were having electrical problems, everything else. That was really awesome. I was really proud of the efforts put out by the employees. And then the one thing that the mayor missed was that, and I drove around a lot, see how things were going, and I would go past the well on 2252 at Bat Cave, and I saw a lot of the public works people working on the wells. One thing that the mayor didn't mention was that he had taken off his mayor hat and put on his engineer hat, and he was helping. And I don't mean just saying, hey, what's going on, because he was there. I'd go by in the morning, I'd go by in the afternoon, and he was working away with these guys, and that's pretty strong. I'm glad he's an engineer. That sure does help. But it was a whole city thing, and I really appreciate the work of Public Works, the Water Department, and the staff that did a great job. I hate to say it, I got to be somewhere, but I just wanted to get my comments in. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am?
I suppose I got a lot to say on this subject. I've written some notes. You know, I think lots of the staff and Public Works deserve lots of applause. I mean, they went to heroic efforts to keep the wells up and running, to keep our water supply going under very tough circumstances. As an elected official, what I need to do is listen to our citizens. And I've had 2 overwhelming complaints about our response. And they really go hand in hand. One is no established emergency plan, and the other is a lack of communication. You know, I can tell you, I did everything. Again, I didn't have any power, charging for my car. I reached out to all the local churches. I contacted local businesses to see if they had power along 2252 and could host people for warming centers. I called Bracken Fire Department. They were having water and power problems as well. I had conversations with Comal ISD, and ultimately, after going, as the mayor said, after going back and forth and talking to 3 different people, they decided, and I think rightly so, that their facilities, they didn't know enough about their facilities to open them up to the public. They didn't know what pipes were burst. They didn't know if they had water. They did have electricity in some places, but a lot of their buildings suffered from the sprinkler system freezing up, and they lost, anyway, the school district suffered a lot of damage. So ultimately, they decided that they could not open up until all of their facilities were assessed. And like everybody else, their employees didn't have power. They were, in different places and couldn't get out to all of the schools, with any great speed. And I guess back to communication. I mean, I did what I could. I posted on the Moms of Garden Ridge page and Keep Garden Ridge Positive, and that brings us to about 1,100 people are signed up for those pages. And I did get people who really appreciated the information that I was giving them. And I got that information from Nancy and Kat and Marissa. They were really good about answering my questions and sharing information back and forth. There was also a warming center that opened up at Aerial Athletics. We did open up the Audi dealership. We had one family come take advantage of that, and that doesn't surprise me. Our dealership is pretty far away from Garden Ridge. But I'll tell you, a lot of people just did not know what was going on. People were really hungry for information. And I read somewhere, while this was going on, a quote that said, if you can't give them power, give them information. If you can't give them water, give them information. I mean, let people set some expectations. When Nancy was able to say to me, here's how long they think this, when we finally got to actual kind of rolling blackouts, not just the power blinking off and on, when Nancy was able to give me, kind of an estimate, hey, we're hearing that the power's going to be on for 4 to 6 hours and then roll off again. People could make some decisions then about where they, were they going to stay in their house? Were they going to try to get a hotel? Were they going to move somewhere else? What were they going to do with that time when the power was on, and they could prepare for the power going off? So, I mean, I think, again, kind of what I've heard the most is we need an emergency management plan. We need communications plans in place. We need to identify what resources we need. That includes, supplies, whether it's generators, whether it's cots, whether it's a food supply, whether it's people like the Lions Club. We need to predetermine our allies, like the churches, like the local churches. Unfortunately, the ones on 2252 also had power and water problems. We need to look at safety and security issues for our citizens, line out what the staff responsibilities are, what we're going to do to protect our infrastructure. I mean, I like what I see, on some of those pictures. And much of this information was new to me. I mean, I didn't feel as a council member that I was entirely in the loop about what was going on. But I got what information I could. I didn't want to bother them too much as well, because they were answering the phone and doing the very best that they could under the circumstances. But if we learned anything in the last year between COVID and this crazy winter weather, we need to be better prepared. I'm just kind of across the board. I didn't expect COVID, and I didn't expect the severity of this storm and the power outages. So I think we have to, as best we can, prepare for the things that we don't expect. Try to cross as many T's and dot as many I's, as we can. So yeah, the two biggest things I'm hearing about is communications and having some emergency plan in place. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, there's been some discussion about the two ordinances. And my reading of those is that they are really just the general law ordinances that we kind of just check the box on.
Well, one of them is a requirement under the National Incident Management System that all cities, all jurisdictions have to agree to be part of that system. So that's what one of the ordinances is. So there's really not a lot to it other than saying that we're part of it. And we are by virtue of the fact that our management is through the county, and that our hazard mitigation plan and all the plans are written into the county plan. And if you look at the county plan, it has Garden Ridge as a section in that, has Bulverde and it has and all that. So yeah, that's one of them. And then the other one is just to emphasize that we as a city will be prepared and all that, but it doesn't, to say that we write our own plan, if we write any more in the plan, frankly, it's going to go back into the Comal County plan. And there's room to do it. There's no getting around it. But it's not a standalone plan. It's part of the Comal County plan. As
Right.
the way Comal County Emergency Management is structured is Bulverde, us, Spring Branch, we're all part of the consolidated emergency management. of the
Sure,
county.
but Comal County is not going to be the one that's telling us how we communicate with our citizens or
Oh, ma'am, I
what
didn't
our
say that.
staff does, those very specific things that are, what we need for our city,
Mm-hmm.
not just the county, their recommendations.
Understand.
Okay.
Anything
That's
else?
it. No, I think that's it.
Sure.
Thanks.
Hopefully, this is not going to happen for another 70 years, and most of us won't be here then, because everybody was caught off guard. There's no way to get around that. At least everything you said is well taken and necessary, but if we go back to the week that this took place, Mr. Frasco, I don't want you to leave just yet, please. The communications we were supposedly had, if we will go back to that period, we had no communication. We didn't have a TV. We didn't have maybe but a couple hours a day. The computer system was down. Internet service was down. I could barely get any kind of phone service on my cell phone. There was little to no communication. So in another serious situation like this, I think that's going to be limited, but it definitely needs to be taken a look at. That being said, I want to say to everybody, I've said this since I've been on council, this is by far the finest group of people we have running this city that I've ever seen. And this goes to show just how well things work with this high quality of individuals that we have. You don't know how much we appreciate what you've done. I hope everybody listening tonight knows that y'all went way beyond what you should have done or could have done. You did things that were not necessarily even possible, but you got us through this. We appreciate it very much. Thanks.
Sure, go ahead.
I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, obviously, well, since it all started. Obviously, the entire state of Texas was not prepared for this. I find that to be a little bit disappointing. I'm assuming at some point in the future, we're going to get some sort of an accounting from ERCOT and/or CPS about why this happened and what they're doing to fix it. I think that should be a requirement. I know we're Little Old Garden Ridge, but still. I could discuss communications. It was challenging for everybody. I was out without power for basically Monday through Wednesday. Internet service was almost non-existent. I could charge my phone in my car, and still found it, I could get some communication going on, and I did get some phone calls from some people and did go help some people out. If there was an issue with folks that needed help, we've all got to help each other out, folks. If you don't have communication, we can't communicate. And, you know, by the way, communication's two ways. If you're talking and nobody's listening, that's not communication. So there's probably a little work we can do there. I've had so many people ask me so many questions. I think this is going to go on for the next couple of months. I've had people ask me, even today, is there any talk of a class action lawsuit with the city of Garden Ridge and its citizens against CPS Energy and ERCOT for the damage we sustained? I don't even know if that's possible, but that may be something we want to discuss in the future. I'm sure there may be an issue with it. I guess I could go on, and I'm not going to. It's a little bit disheartening to hear people Monday morning quarterback, particularly on social media, when they didn't even know what was going on and what actually happened. And I can just say from the synopsis you gave, Mayor, that was, wow. My biggest frustration with that right now is why didn't you call me? I have Arctic gear, a four-wheel drive truck, and a Minnesota mindset. I can help out a lot when something like this happens. So we'll take that for action later. And I guess that's all I got.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Yes, to piggyback pretty much virtually everything, I don't know of anything that Lisa left out that I would have said and agree totally. The communication sadly lacking. I was able to call in and I spoke to, as a matter of fact, one time I called and Nancy said, I'm in the hospital. I'm like, excuse me? You know, so there was a little bit of a call. I did call and check on the dogs and I was told they were okay. I wasn't in a position necessarily to leave because I live on a hill and I watched some pickup trucks slide down that hill. So I really wasn't sure I should attempt to go out. But I would have appreciated a communication from within because we had such communication way back with Hurricane Harvey. We had terrific communication for all of us to participate. We had terrific communication at the beginning of COVID. We had Zooms, we had everything else, and I know we couldn't have done Zooms, but we had so much communication, and I felt like I was answering questions for my neighbors. They were looking to me for answers. I had no answers. I was trying to find the answers. I found no answers. You know, you can look on social media all you want, and of course I saw what Marissa would post and so on, and I assumed the guys were out and working, because I had to call them, because I had some misinformation about the water line, and so on. So just everything in general, I just feel like, I wish, yes, great team, no question, it was above and beyond. Dwayne came to my house, and so on. I mean, Dwayne's super, these guys do a super job. These women do a super job. But no one reached out to us representing the citizens to say, this is what you can tell your citizens. We had to take the initiative. We had to be the proactive ones to find out what we could on, social media, which of course, as we know, is not always accurate. I would have given everything you were doing, I understand, but if you had to delegate it to somebody else, your mayor pro tem, please reach out to all the council people so the council people can do what they can do. I didn't have any electricity or water for probably longer than most people. And I don't cook, but I would have taken all kinds of chips and salsa somewhere. I could have taken dog food to someone. There's lots of things I could have done. I had a lot of bottled water. I could have done a lot. Through the input from another very dear friend of mine and citizen, she's the one that suggested, could we not try a water station up at City Hall, or ended up being at the library. I went up there myself. I got water, because I did not have water. And again, maybe 2 or 3 took advantage of it. But unless someone, here's the thing. I assume our emergency phone system wasn't working, I assume. I assume that.
Our phones weren't working, no.
Right. So, that, of course, obviously, there had been a catastrophe. But we have to look forward not to a freeze. Let's think about, maybe we're due for a hurricane or a tornado. It could be anything like that could be imminent. And we need control over that. And we don't need, I'd like a consensus on, should our council members be, advocating yes or no in emergencies, or censoring input from citizens on Nextdoor. I don't think we should have veto power. Our commissioners don't. And I think, by default and common sense would say, you know, we don't need the mayor or the council people censoring or whatever comments on social media. I mean, I'd like a consensus. I know John already left, but I'd like a consensus. Do we believe that that's right?
Do we believe it's happening? Well,
Yes.
It
Yes, I
sounds
do.
like you're making an accusation that I and council, somebody on council is censoring social media, and nothing could be further from the truth. So,
I'm just wondering, because, again, I'm not disputing the citizens, okay? I'm not, and I do take it with a grain of salt. I read what I read. I do not post, but positive or negative, whether it's for a recommendation for a fantastic plumber that I have, or a fantastic electrician that I have, for example, or air conditioning guy, because I don't want it to reflect on the city if this goes bad. I mean, if I know the person looking for a recommendation or a referral, I will contact them personally.
Okay, Kay, what does that got to do with this situation right here?
The
Let's go
situation-
back to the censoring.
Hang on.
What do you
Let-
think are censoring?
Councilman Lanzi.
Give it as an
Councilman
example.
Lanzi, let her finish, please.
Well, I mean, everyone is trying to communicate, and I don't think this is the time or the place for anyone to, you know, respond to anybody's post about the crises. It's one thing to post, you know, comments or something like that. Everyone's entitled, well, okay, you're not getting my point. Okay. I just think, should we maybe have a consensus among the council members that it is, well, Mr. Lancy doesn't want to vote, so.
No, but you threw away, you did a little fall-away jumper that said that the mayor and somebody on council
No, I didn't say the no, I did not-
was censoring
No,
what was
I
happening?
said- I asked-
I wouldn't know how to censor it even if you asked me to do it.
Okay, I'm asking, do we not agree that, this has to do with the response to the crisis, okay? Do we not agree, whether it be this crisis or something else, that we should not, as council people, if we were private citizens, so to speak, we can put it out there all we want. But as council people, even though it says in Ordinance 210 that commissioners shouldn't post things, I don't think it's fair for, you know, anyone to respond to a post in a negative way. I just don't think that's fair. Or to delete things.
So did someone on this council respond to something in a negative way, or did somebody delete something?
I don't have the proof. And again,
So you're making an accusation, but you don't know if it's true.
No, I'm asking for an open discussion on it, the concept.
Tell you what we'll do. We'll put it on the agenda for next time and bring in the proof that somebody was censoring and deleting and anything else that you say.
I would.
Because I can tell you nobody was.
Okay, what about responding to some citizens' comments about their suffering or whatever like that? I don't think.
So you're speaking to something that I would ask you, did you think to ask the person that was involved?
I can't reach everyone that's involved.
There's two people that were involved. Did you ask either one of them? But you're sitting here tonight making this accusation based on swirling stuff on social media, and the two people that are involved in it, you have not spoken to either one of them.
I don't know about that. I don't
Okay,
know. I don't
so
know if
we'll
we're
put it
talking
on the
about
agenda for next council meeting.
Okay.
And I'll be glad to have you bring the proof that you're speaking, that you don't have now, and we can address this, and we can figure out who's making comments and who's censoring and all that.
Okay, again, if I read what citizens put out there, again, I am capable of sorting out what I believe is true, not true, or.
But you're not doing that right now.
No, I'm asking for a consensus. I'm asking,
Well-
do we not agree that maybe we shouldn't be doing that? Like, you know,
I haven't understood a word you said since you started talking. What are you going to do a consensus on?
Brian, did you check your email today?
no.
Okay, so let me just stop this discussion right now and
Okay.
tell you that later on in this agenda, I'm going to address the emails that you received and tell you that we can't talk about them because they're not on the agenda. But you will get information on it, and we can talk about it next time as well.
Okay.
But I'm still going to implore you to not read something on social media and then come in here without checking on it first.
I'm not. I am completely qualifying what I just said.
Okay.
I am quite capable of assessing, you know,
We'll
Okay.
replay the tape. because you did make the assertion that people were doing it.
No,
So we are going to circle back to this. Yeah?
Is that a joke?
Yeah. I know you'll like that one. We know who I'm referring to.
Yes, I do.
We're going to talk about this under communication report and citizen contact report? You're going
Yes.
to bring it up? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, because, okay.
Yes. So, do you have anything else, ma'am?
Well, I just want to expand on my point that I wish we had some sort of a font of system to dispense, if you will, from, for example, yourself, management, whatever you want to call it, to those of us who are trying to support the citizens as well. Our hands may be tied because we don't have answers. My answers came from any call that I initiated, which of course it's difficult to get through, plus what I could read on social media, like the warming station and so on and so on. Because I did like everyone else, I sat out in my car, charged my phone. That is how I obtained my email as well. So I was able to stay in communication. But I couldn't do anything about it, and I didn't have any information to share, let me put it this way, any legitimate information aside from some things from Ms. Spencer or my own one-on-one phone calls as to what the heck was going on. So I couldn't answer any questions for anyone else. So,
Anything else, ma'am?
nope,
Okay,
never.
reattack.
Just specifically, as far as communication goes, I know Marissa will cover some of what we already do, but it's my understanding in the past, we also did robocalls. And we can't, on one hand, brag about the volume of calls that our city is getting and the issues that they're dealing with via phone, and then say, our citizens are unable to receive or make contact with us. I mean, those are two opposing ideas. I mean, most of us were able to charge in the car. Some of us had phones. There are ways that we can get the word out, the information out to the people during kind of crisis. There's all kinds of, there's programs, there's a module that fits with our Civic Plus website. The other thing that I forgot to mention before, and maybe this is something that happens outside the city, maybe it's a volunteer program, but we really do need something to check on our neighbors. We've got a lot of elderly people in this town and that may not have family here, and I think we all do a good job individually kind of checking our next door neighbors across the street, see what's going on. But there may be people that, that need that outreach, or that have a special issue that we need to just kind of be aware on and have somebody assigned to just check in. So that's my thing I forgot.
And to put in a plug for another organization, the Citizens Police Academy does have a COIN program, Check on Your Neighbor program. So the one thing, I'm going to go back through. Sir, do you have anything else? Anything else? Have anything? Communications, again, Ms. Spencer is going to talk about the communications. But the thing that I'm puzzled about is that nobody contacted me up here that is saying that they didn't have any information. Because I answered every night when I got home, I answered dozens of emails and texts, and I could have very easily, in the world, the world that was getting smaller and smaller for me as we were concentrating on what I told you about, you both that said that you weren't hearing anything were perfectly capable of contacting me and saying, what's going on? Hey, do you got any information? What can we do? I didn't get any of that. So I'm not blaming you. I'm just asking, did it ever occur to you that you could have asked instead of relying on social media? And you could have helped. I thought of us as being a team, and we could have worked as a team. There's no doubt about it. I should have contacted you, and I didn't. And that was a mistake I made, but you could have contacted me and said, hey, what are you doing? And I would have said, oh, yeah, let me tell you. Or, yeah, Marissa and I had just talked, and the stuff that's going out there is what we know right now. And I didn't get any of that. I received no contact from y'all. And I don't understand why, frankly.
Well, I've already mentioned who I was in contact with. But you're the designated emergency manager. Is it easier for you to reach out to all the people, or should you respond to all of the citizens reaching out to you?
No, what I'm suggesting
No, you're
is,
talking about personally. There's a council member that I did not reach out to you and ask what was going on.
yes,
Well,
and
you
say,
set up
hey,
the
what's going on?
Okay, I'll tell you, in our previous interactions on these kind of crises, you have put together a message, you've sent emails, you've recorded things, you've gotten things out.
Absolutely.
So is it my job to push you to communicate with me?
No, and I'm not saying it was your job. I'm
Right.
saying that after days of you saying you're starving for information, you could have asked and said, hey, knucklehead, what are you doing?
Well, I'll call you
Right?
a knucklehead anytime.
And so I'm asking why y'all didn't contact me. I'm not blaming you for a message not getting out. I'm just saying you could have contacted me. And yes, the videos, couldn't have done that. We didn't have power. We didn't have telephones. And I didn't want to talk about it, but I did spend all my time outside. I did spend all my time with water, public works, generators. And so my view became very myopic. Not an excuse, a reason, not an excuse. But at any time, y'all could have just said, hey, what's going on? And I would have said, oh, yeah, you're right. Man, I'm screwing this up. I need to contact somebody. And that never happened. And I don't know why, because now we're Monday morning quarterbacking it and saying that you never told us anything. But, we're a team, and you could have asked. And you know how to get a hold of me, and you very clearly could get a hold of other people. And you were even suggested at one point to get a hold of me, and you still didn't do it. So, yes,
Who was suggested? Who
Yes.
suggested? Who suggested I reach out to you?
one of our staff members said, if you need water, contact the mayor. Because I was at the well sites. I could either
No.
brought it to you, or you could have come to whatever well site I was at the
No,
time,
I
and you would
believe-
have water.
No, I contacted Stephen because I wanted to know about the water. No, I don't believe that's, I'm not saying it's a false, but I don't recall that. I
Okay.
recall my.
Anyway, my point is, I'm not trying to deflect the fact that I should have communicated more. I can tell you my perception was that I was communicating a lot, I just wouldn't put my name at the bottom of it. A lot of the statements, a lot of what was going on, the status, I was working with our admin to do it. Yeah, I should have put my name at the bottom of it, or figured out a way to do a video, or any number of things, but I'm just making an appeal to y'all that it's not just about me, it's about us as the team that is leading our city. And
I'm trying to simplify this. If, not place any blame, that's not my intention. I have a generator that's still in the box. I have a freezer full of food I wasn't losing because I had enough electricity to keep stuff frozen. I could have helped with food up here at the police department. I could have loaned you all the generator. We got 15 gallons of gas sitting right there. I mean, if I'd known that you needed things like that, I would have definitely offered.
Well, I guess what I'm hearing is that we want to be included a little bit more. That maybe we need to prioritize communication when something like this is going on.
Most definitely, and I'm trying to think of when you've ever been told not to be asking for information and getting information. I don't think I've ever done that. I've always given you information you've asked for, always, that I can recall. We haven't always agreed, but aside from us not always agreeing, you've always gotten an answer. In fact, all those people that wrote to me and texted me during the course of the week got an answer all the time, too. So, yes, by all means, if you think that there's no message going out and the message needs to go out, knock me on the head and say, what's going on?
Got it.
But none of that happened. So, anything else? Anything? Ma'am? Okay, so where we are now is moving on to item 7A2, What 782 is a resolution, it's Resolution 471, resolution to basically respond to the winter weather emergency and establish special service rates in our water rates for extenuating circumstances. So as a result of the emergency, obviously, we had, in this hard freeze, we had a lot of people that had significant water leaks. They had to turn off their water, and sometimes they were delayed getting the water turned off. People were having to run water to keep things from freezing. Lots of stuff was going on. And obviously, there was a lot of either intentional or unintentional high usage during this period. Of course, the city has a mechanism for people to do water leak adjustments. And if you know, if you paid attention to water leak adjustments, what ends up happening is somebody puts in a water leak adjustment, their excessive water use, if it's determined is a leak, they get charged now at the Tier 2 rate, which is what the water costs the city. The issue with that I have at this point is that we're talking about some people that have had broken pipes and they're tearing into their walls and their ceilings. And the last thing we need to do is then say, here's some forms to fill out, and here's a water commission meeting to go to explain your case, and then a council meeting to tell council about your case. And we said, things are bad enough for them, we don't need to make it worse. And so what we did was we examined what we could do, and what we came up with was to cap the entire city at Tier 2. Now, some people will be at Tier 1, they'll never even touch Tier 2 if they're using, 5,000 gallons or all the way up to 15,000. But what the resolution proposes is that everyone is capped at Tier 2 rates. So that means that basically everybody in the city gets a water leak adjustment. So there's no need for anybody to go through the process, no need for anybody to have to justify that they had a leak. We are just proposing in this resolution, everybody gets a water leak adjustment. And the mechanism to do that is this resolution to then put everybody at Tier 2. In other words, there's no increase in the rate above 25,000 gallons. And the cost of the water, it's actually, it's not quite the cost of the water. The water costs us a tiny bit more, but it's a pretty good approximation, very good approximation, actually, as the water commissioner chair could tell you. But for this cycle, it's roughly about $15,000 that comes off of the billing, and to give everybody this quote-unquote leak adjustment, which is in essence to try to help some folks, and we can show you some of this stuff. I also asking you to, and you don't have to do this through the resolution, just by consensus, we have been operating with a 4-month payment plan, and if by chance somebody, even after staying in Tier 2, if it becomes a hardship for them, we'd like to have them just request, and we'll give them a 6-month opportunity to pay it over 6 months instead of over the 4 months. If you approve this resolution tonight, we will print up new bills, and they'll go out, and everybody's due date will be advanced a week. And that's because we delayed sending out the bills because we wanted to bring this to you. We'll send out the bills, and then again, as we said, no late fees and all that kind of stuff, and no shutting anybody's water off. But bottom line is, want to give people what the water costs us. If we go less than that, what it ends up being is everybody else has to pay for that water. And, we've had those discussions before. Because it's really, as the staff has heard me say over and over again, it's not an us and them, it's all us. There's no them. So the vote would be for the resolution or any variation of that, and then also consensus on the payment plan. We have some before and after bills if you'd like to see them. If you're not interested, we don't have to go through that. But Ms. Spencer has a few before and after bills she can show you how that would come into play. I got a head nod from somebody, so we're going to go ahead and go through that. So Ms. Spencer, go ahead and take a few of these and show them.
Okay, so this first one you're seeing is one of our highest ones, and so you'll see that before they're The bill total for the water only is right there written after total, so their bill will decrease by $2,089.90 with this proposal. Another high one is the second one. Their bill decreases by $690.52 and going from $1,191.93. I mean, it's a pretty significant decrease for the customer. This one, the usage is 95,000, which the ones before I didn't state, but that very first one was 185,000 gallons usage. So these are pretty significant ones. You'll see on this one, the bill decreases by $572.50. This is another very similar one, 93,000 gallons of usage, and their bill decreases by $543.30. And now we get down to the usage being, I would want to say a little more regular, but for this customer in particular, if you look over on the right side of where the chart is, their usage is pretty consistent throughout, consistently the same around. So they would still get an adjustment, and it would just decrease by $71.32. This is one that's a usage of 41,000 gallons. Their bill decreases by $43.42. Now we're down to 35,000 gallons used. Remember that if you didn't use above 25,000 gallons, this isn't going to affect what you're charged. So that's why you're seeing the amount being that actually is decreased on the bill is getting lower as we get lower on the usage. And this last one, it shows you just 30,000, because once you get over 25 is actually when you're getting an adjustment. So this one decreases by $9.80.
Thank you. That shows how this kind of plays out. So starting over on the left side, comments, questions about this proposal? Anything you'd like to talk about? Councilwoman Bauer.
No, I think it's fair. I think it's what we can do for the citizens. That first one, could you post that first one again, please? Okay, that might be mine.
It's not, but
Seriously. But, no, I mean, I think that's an equitable way, like you said, not to take it below, our cost. In other words, it's a net, so, no pun intended, a wash. The citizens who, did not suffer a loss aren't asked to pay for us, although it'd be great if they would. But I don't think that's fair. I think it's equitable to kind of even the playing field, so to speak. And obviously, we're all and we have the option. I'm wondering if there's a magic to 4 months. Should we just install it as 6 months regardless, or?
that's a great question. In fact, we asked, why did we make it 4 months? And we weren't able to nail that down. But then we said, let's make this 6 months. But I just want to get consensus from y'all that we can do that 6 months.
Okay. I just think because ironically, we're coming into potentially a high water usage. I mean, I know this only affects the February 25th billing.
It's January 22nd to
Right. But then,
February 22nd.
okay, so we won't need water maybe in March or April, but then if we start, the usual pattern of needing a lot more water, say come June, July, and we're still paying a considerably higher, it just might help level everything out.
Yeah.
If we go 6 months.
For the payment plan, yeah.
Optional extended payment plan.
If somebody asks for it, absolutely,
Correct.
yes.
Correct.
Yes. Agreed. Anything else, ma'am? Sir?
This is as fair as we can make it. I don't see how the city can do anything else. But, and I don't know how hard this is going to be, and I'm looking at poor Jacob over there. How much above our normal usage for the month of February did we go because of all of the broken pipes? You can wag that number. Don't give me an exact one. Just give me a guess.
Very similar to last year's.
Pretty similar to last February's, even with all the broken pipes and everything else? Shoot, that wasn't the answer I wanted.
When we go through my report, you'll see it.
Okay, fair enough. What my brain is thinking is the citizens of this city and this city shouldn't be responsible for paying that water that went out the busted pipes. The folks who let the power go out might have had something to do with that.
Yeah, and we're already investigating. and,
Okay.
We're investigating if there's any way we can recover it any other way, and right now, it unfortunately doesn't look like we can. We had a long discussion about that with our financial manager. And,
Okay.
Yeah,
I-
it doesn't look good,
If you
unfortunately.
haven't picked up on it right now, let's just say the boards of ERCOT and CPS wouldn't want to walk into a closed room with me right now.
Or with most people.
2.5 million other people in the state
Yeah,
of Texas, quite
most people,
frankly.
yeah.
But I think they're liable for this, and there's got to be a way we can recoup some of it. I mean, if CPS is going to come back after us to tell us we used up all this high-cost electricity with rolling blackouts and all the damage it did to our buildings, I think we need to bill them back for the additional cost we incurred because they couldn't keep our power running. I think that's fair, and I know CPS is probably going to take a hit out on me or something, or come over and disconnect my house. But it was embarrassing to have the power go out like that, and I hold them personally responsible for it. So hopefully we can figure out a way to deal with it. I don't know how.
Thanks, sir.
Well, the governor feels the same way you do, so. I agree, this is a great solution. I agree with it.
Thank you. Ma'am?
I like it too. I think it's fair. I'm glad Todd asked the questions about tapping into any kind of disaster relief funds. That'd be great. Doesn't sound likely from what you said, but that's a great, great hope. Does this negate anybody's chance to come back and ask for a leak adjustment?
No,
Is that
absolutely not.
they can still?
No, and great question. You know, there was a process years ago that the standard of proof for a leak was super low. And basically you could just walk in and go, I had a leak, and none of us were here.
Okay.
But you'd get a leak adjustment. We've turned that around. Now there's a process for the leak adjustment, but there's nothing that says that you can only get one leak adjustment or two leak adjustments.
Okay.
It's merely, and
So
in
what
fact,
we-
you all looked at a couple last time where some people had some pretty big leak adjustments
Sure.
just before.
Sure.
So no, this does not have any effect on leak adjustments
Okay.
before or after.
Okay. Sounds good.
Good. So the resolution on table 471, need some action from y'all, if I could get a motion?
I move to approve it with the exception of stating a 6-month optional payout if a citizen requests it.
Okay, and to be clear, in the resolution, it doesn't have the pay thing, so I was just going to treat that as a separate kind of consensus from y'all.
sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Therefore, I approve the resolution.
Place 5 with a motion to approve Resolution 471-032021. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Place 4 with a second. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. And then consensus on the 6-month payment plan that we'll offer anybody that asks for it.
I had a thought. Why don't we extend the 6-month pay it out plan to any citizen that asks?
You actually had me there for a second. I went, okay, yeah, good idea. So, consensus? Everybody good with that? All right, great. Thank you very much. All right, now, as I promised, we're moving on to staff reports and the opportunity for you to ask them questions specifically of things as they bring them up, and then the standard staff reports. Also, remember continuity of operations with COVID and all that. And of course, we will be talking about COVID in a little bit too. So turn it over to City Administrator. Ma'am.
Okay. I have a couple of things that I want to add to my report this month. There will be a joint Lions Club and city-sponsored blood drive on March 27th from 9 to 3 at the Community Center. Then, as you know, week before last was a very, very busy week with our weather emergency. I spent many hours either on the phone or through text, trying to work with CPS Energy and get a resolution to our power problem. With that being said, we finally were able to get, more stable power, and which helped tremendously with our well situation, as well as the residents being able to receive much more stable power. I want to say thank you to staff and mayor. They worked hard, they worked tirelessly and selflessly during that period of time to try to take care of Garden Ridge residents and continue services, as well as take care of each other. We learned a lot, and yes, we do have some work ahead of us. I want to thank our city secretary for picking up my job responsibilities while I was during my unplanned absence. No, it wasn't a vacation, but. But anyway, I want to say that I'm very proud of the staff, the way they work together, and this was the ultimate teamwork. I'm very proud of them, and I say thank you, and Mayor, I include you in that too.
Questions, comments for the city administrator, starting right side?
I've seen some questions about an additional large trash removal day or a brush debris kind of day. I don't know what I'm doing with all of our plants that froze and died, and I think people don't know what they're going to do with theirs either. I mean, do we have dumpster days coming up? Someone asked about maybe scheduling an extra.
We normally have dumpsters the first 4 weekends during the month. I'm not sure. Do we have 5 weekends in March? No? I can approach Republic and see if we can arrange for an additional.
If I can, I'd like to jump in on this because I have some personal experience with this. A few years back, I cut up a bunch of stuff, and I was griping to my neighbor that I needed to take it to the dumpsters, and he goes, just put it out on the road. And he says, you just need to make sure it's bundled up. And so we bundled it up in bundles that you can pick up as a normal human being, and we put it out there, and they took it all. Now, you don't want to abuse that.
Right.
But it's really amazed me how much they're willing to
Well,
take.
maybe what we could do is provide some guidelines to our citizens about
And-
how to
and it
put their
actually
large
is-
trash
It is
in there.
articulated in it, yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay.
But,
What that looks like, so it does get picked up and it's just not sitting there.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And we have it written, so we'll just reemphasize it. But, yeah, first 4 months first 4 weekends of odd months is the dumpster. And then some people saying, because I've heard that some people say they can't get the stuff out there. Other people have offered to help. But in many cases, you can, and if you can't get it out there, we get trashed twice, and you bring stuff out, bring some of it out on one of your days and bring the rest of it out on another day. It's amazing how much they'll pick up.
Okay.
Great question. Okay, come over here for city administrator.
Just actually to Lisa's point, that is a great idea and it's doable for a lot of people, but not everyone has the capability of actually dragging those limbs or bundling, and we don't all necessarily have a neighbor that could help us. And those of us who don't have a truck or something, to take it to the dumpster weekends, possibly a service organization like the Lions or Citizens Police Academy for that matter, could, or Boy Scouts or whatever, could, say we're available to do this. Unfortunately, there may be people that abuse that privilege, but we should at least try for those, because I'm sure there are people who actually need the help and maybe aren't capable of bundling, or they're going to get stuck or beat up by the branches or something like that. I had to have a tree taken out today, but I hired someone to do it. And I did notify PD because it was an emergency, because of where we are. So I'm just saying that's possibly, I know, well, John's not here, and Citizens Police Academy, maybe those in the audience that are listening, something like that. It's just something, a way to reach out to the citizens this time around.
Okay. Anything else? Moving on to item 8B, Finance HR.
Okay. Oh. Okay, so we have offered a position to a new employee for the water department, and that person is going to start on the 15th. And I got really excited because this was going to be the first time, I think, in the 6 years I've worked here that we were completely staffed. However, on Tuesday during the snowstorm, I accepted a 2-week notice from an employee from the water department. And then on Thursday, that person decided they were not going to work out their 2-week notice, and they just left. So that left Jacob and Stephen a little more behind the 8 ball because they were down another person. And then, of course, payroll had to be that week also. Since we didn't have electricity at our home, it was on and off. I caught a 30-minute break on Wednesday, which was kind of a drop-dead date for me to get it out on time. I decided that we would pay the employees just their set hours because they didn't have access to their timesheets. So then last week, we ran a special payroll to catch them up for their overtime. Jack from my department, our accounting assistant, she assisted Marissa with the telephone calls, and she enjoyed that. And the payroll hours for overtime during the week of the snowstorm were approximately 110 hours for all of the hourly employees. Now, that would have been a lot worse had we not had Monday as a holiday, because an employee has to physically work 40 hours before they get paid overtime. So, not good for the employees. And then we had, of course, our salary employees who were just working their butts off during that whole storm without any additional. So, it was an interesting time. Also, I wanted to tell you a little bit about FEMA did declare that it's a disaster with the snowstorm. It only includes patchwork that was done. So if there was any cracked pipes that happened, we cannot make a claim for that. We can only make a claim for the actual patch that got you up and going. And you have to file with your insurance company before you can file with FEMA. So we'll continue to look at that as more details come available, but I don't think we're going to be able to substantially collect anything from FEMA. It's a 75-25 split. But no permanent fixes were included. Snow removal was not included. Sanding not included. The hourly or the pay that we paid our employees to do that is not included. So it's very limited to what that scope is. That's all I have.
Start on the left side, questions, comments for FM and HR?
No, just no pressure because you did so well with COVID money. Thank you.
Different animal because this
Yeah.
is the federal government and not the state government.
Thank you.
Ma'am. Next up, item 8C, City Secretary.
So you have the report. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. For the election that is coming up, I received the sample ballot, the draft sample ballot today, and reviewed it and gave my corrections, which I'm very surprised I even had to give corrections. Usually they have everything perfectly right, but so I hope to have that back by the end of the week. Once I get it back, it'll be posted on the website and on the bulletin board for everyone to see. And then I wanted to talk briefly about, we added another way to view and pay your utility bill on your phone. It's an app called My Civic Utilities. So download it, check it out, give us a call if you have any questions. There's more information about it in the Grapevine. It's just another means to view and pay your bill for make it easier on anyone that wants to use their phone. And then you heard about admin winter weather emergency response from Mayor Thompson earlier about the call volume, which you can see in the report, and staff, including Jack, which we're grateful for her assistance, did a wonderful job. I also included a little bit about the communication efforts in the monthly report, but I want to go in a little more detail about that specifically. So information and reminders about preparing for the freeze, as well as updates throughout the week from CPS Energy, Republic Service garbage schedule, a warming stations in the surrounding areas, even that would keep people overnight, water station, no boil water notice, all of those things were things that were posted not only on our social media sites, because obviously not everybody has social media, and the people that do have social media, some of them couldn't even access social media during this time. But they're also posted on our website through a module that is called Alerts. People can sign up to receive these notifications either by email or through a text message. I think our main challenge is that getting citizens to actually opt in to receive notifications from our website has always been a challenge. Yeah, and I mean, we understand to a degree that you don't want to receive a bunch of excess notifications every time we post something on the website, because it is multiple times a day, every day. But I would say to anyone that wants to receive the most important information, at bare minimum, please opt in to the alerts notifications. It's easy. You go to the home page on the website, and right below the picture slideshow is some icons. There's an envelope. It says notify me. You click on it. It'll give you the different lists that you can sign up to receive notifications from. The alerts one is anything that we post that will show up at the top of the page, and it's usually like very important stuff, or heads up, this is last minute, this changed, any emergency updates. So every time one of those was posted through this event, anyone that was signed up to receive those via text or email got notified. So I understand there's the challenge of, our phones weren't charged, our phones weren't working, we didn't have internet, we didn't have power, but we did everything that we could do. I mean, we answered the phones, we gave all this information verbally through every citizen that called and asked. We were telling people about the warming station that weren't even asking about a warming station, just to try to get the word out. So all of these updates, I mean, it's a team effort. It doesn't have anyone's name at the bottom because it can't really be attributed to one person. I mean, I was getting updates from Mayor and from Nancy, and some from Stephen and from Jacob both, and then they were then distributed to my staff, and so they were able to tell anyone that called, and then depending on what time it was and who had power at the time, that's who posted it on the website or on social media. And I would love to hear if anyone has any suggestions of solutions that would be anything that different from what we did. So if you have any of those, feel free to reach out to me. I would love to hear them and discuss them. Other than that, that is all I have to add to my report.
Thank you, Ms. Spencer. Starting on the right side, questions, comments?
First of all, thank you for responding to me so promptly with all of my questions. You and Kat and Nancy, all three of you, it was great getting some information. Do you know how many people are signed up for our Notify Me?
It varies based on the modules, each of the modules. Some people, they want to be notified when a council agenda is posted, but they don't want to be notified about anything else. So you can pick individual ones to be notified about. I can tell you that the highest one for any given one is less than 150.
Okay, so that's a big problem.
Yes.
Yeah, so so we did what we could with what we had, but maybe we do a sign-up drive. Maybe we do something, to re-alert citizens and get on the phone and make it super easy for people.
Yeah, that's the big challenge is
Right, is getting people to
citizens
sign up,
just have
for
to
sure.
opt in.
For sure. Got it. Thank you.
Sir?
I think well done on the effort. I've said it before, if you're making your lips move and air's coming out and folks aren't listening, communication's not going on, and that is one of the problems that we have here, is because we do have this ability online and everything else, and nobody signed up for it. And it's been a source of frustration for me as a councilman since I got on the council, is how do we communicate better with the citizens? We definitely need to keep working at it, but people also need to know there's all these things available if they just come looking for it. Communication's got to go both directions.
Ma'am?
Yes, I knew there were glitches with the system, and the traditional answering service. I knew they're going into it, that there were problems with that. So when I did call and wasn't able to get a person, I got great information, and one time, and I don't know that it's something we can, hopefully we never have to address it again. But if you call, you're calling an individual, so they're sharing their cell phone, which is wonderful, and I really appreciate that. They're sharing their cell phone, but if you call and you don't get an answer and you don't recognize the number, you don't really know you're getting through. So it puts more onus back on, in this case, it was Jack, because she took the initiative, because she has a New York phone number, and you think you're calling New York. She took the initiative to call me back because she saw my number and answered my question, and of course it was great. I mean, like instantly. But I'm thinking, where the heck did I call? So, sitting in my car, where did I call? But anyway, but she was great. I mean, it was fun to reach out, and of course I talked to Kat as well, and to Marissa, and like I said, Nancy in the hospital. So, anyway, I really do appreciate the effort that the staff made.
Thank you. Moving on to item 8D, Police Department. Chief.
Thank you, sir. Most of the information is in my report. I do need to make a couple of changes in my report. I notate that there are no damages. We did suffer one small little damage due to the power in and out fluctuations of a large battery backup in the tower in my office that controls all the camera systems. That did get fried during all the CPS on and off, but it's been taken care of. I've already got another one in place and up and going. We did not suffer any damages or injuries to any equipment or people, which is good, considering we moved all of our vehicles out to the front because things were getting so bad during some of these storms that cars were moving by themselves at times. The parking lots were freezing up and the wind blowing, and cars were literally moving parking spaces out there with nobody in the driver's seat. So, and we had to keep running them and moving them and driving them around because of brakes that were freezing up. Since we were using our vehicles, when you'd park them, the rotors would start condensing and then freeze up and actually lock the vehicles in place. So we were doing a lot of maintenance on the vehicles to make sure that our vehicles were maintained and movable and that sort of thing. Not to beat a dead horse, but talking about power and some of these different things, something that was not emphasized, the mayor did bring up the fact that the generator was serviced the week prior to this. But what folks need to know is that generator is run weekly. That generator powers up every week, goes through a load test, goes through a test of its circuitry, and runs for an hour and then shuts itself down. So this was not a last minute, hey, let's get it looked at before the storm hits. That generator is maintained on a constant basis. It was just Murphy's Law. When that hit, a small little turned out to be a $22 relay that shorted out and didn't allow the signal to get to the computer to make it run, which is what we were bypassing by the switch. That has nothing to do with maintenance or anybody else's fault. It was just time for that electronic component to go out because that generator is constantly tested on a weekly basis. So I wanted that to be to known to everybody. The other issue, we're talking about communication. Something everybody's overlooking is when we don't have power. Now, granted, this was an unprecedented event, but when we lose power, I don't care if you can charge your cell phone in your car. If the cell phone towers don't have power, you're still not going to communicate. I went hours and hours without being able to use a cell phone. And the only thing that got me through was I have a hotspot that we have through what's called FirstNet, which is supposed to be the best network in the state of Texas for first responders with the highest priority. and I was still having issues just being able to get text messages out using that device because the power outage was so broad, the towers were down. So we can talk about charging cell phones and we can talk about all this, but if you don't have the electricity, you'll have no infrastructure for any communications, period. So that's something that we need to keep in mind when we talk about this. And one other thing, you brought it up, Councilman Swint, there is, the GRCPAA has been trying to revive a program called COIN, C-O-Y-N, Check on Your Neighbor. And we're talking about that, and we are trying to get that going again so that we can have folks out in the neighborhoods that know their neighbors and know the elderly folks and know the folks that have limitations and special needs so that these neighbors can check on each other. So we don't have to rely on organizations to send that communication out. We're going to be working on that some more, on that COIN program, and we're hoping that, I hate to say it, but this event may help thrust that into a higher level and start that back on the right track. So I hope that works. The last thing I have to add to my report is I don't want anybody to forget, since we moved it, we are starting our new Citizen Police Academy on 6 April. So that's only a month away. We delayed it, if you remember, from January to April because of everything going on. So we're still on board. So 6 April, there's still time through the end of this month for folks that are interested to turn in an application. We can get it processed and checked and get everybody signed up for that. And we will be starting that class on the 6th. That is all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, sir. Left side, questions, comments? Sure. Ma'am?
Thank you for the update on COIN, and this is the first time I've seen yoga listed on your police report over here.
I'm sorry?
Yoga and field training programs?
Well, it's, we subscribe to, part of our training program is we have an online service that we pay an annual fee, and officers can access all these different state approved. And so part of that is physical fitness. And so, yes, she actually took that class online.
I actually want to mention something about the COIN. I mentioned it, that it exists, but as a longtime member of CPA, I can tell you that my wife and I signed up long before you were even here, and the difficulty we had, and Mr. Kniper also can attest to this, is that we had a list of people, and every time you'd contact them, you go, I don't want to be contacted. And they would be very adamant that they were independent and they really didn't want this. So his subtle comment of maybe this would shake some people loose on, yeah, maybe it's a good idea, but we've tried to revive it, I would say roughly every 2 years, and every time it's fallen flat, and we can't get anybody to say, yeah. We get people that say, I'll do it, you know, from the perspective, but nobody wants to receive it. It's been very difficult, actually, to get anybody to say, yeah, I'd like you to check.
Yeah, we have a lot of people that want their privacy and don't want to be
Yeah.
bothered, and they feel that's an intrusion. It's something
But
that we're
talking
trying
about
to
it
get
tonight
around.
might help, and if you didn't know about it, now you know about it.
Well, I would assume that sign-up would be optional, that we're not looking for people.
Oh, yeah,
to-
no,
Oh, yeah.
it's never,
We're not
no, we
like,
don't.
we're gonna check
No,
on you,
no, and
you're
when
the
we were-
one.
When we were calling people, it was because they had been on a previous list.
Okay, okay.
And the program kind of lay fallow for a while, and so then we called them and said, oh, yeah, no, you don't, I don't need that. you know.
Got it.
No, we didn't just go to the phone book and start calling people.
Just checking.
Thank you, Chief. Next up is item 8E, Public Works.
Good evening. In February, one of our big jobs we did was repair the road on Sumac Cove where we did the asphalt repair, where the Oakville containment trench was. We have currently 2 dogs and 2 cats that are in our possession. We're still continuing working on installing automatic plumbing fixtures at the facilities. Then we were preparing for the the winter storm by stockpiling sand and getting our equipment ready. Also took on some calls for the answering service. And helping, assisting the water department with whatever they needed. And that's all I have to add.
Yeah. Questions, comments for?
No questions, just thank you so much for your work, and please thank your wife as well.
Thank you.
Sir? Sir?
Same thing. Thanks for all the hard work. I think you guys went above and beyond.
Ma'am? Thank you, Mr. Simons. Next up is water. Mr. Parsons.
Thank you. So I'd like to highlight a couple things in the report, and the first thing I'd like to say is from this year to last year, we had a difference of about 2 to 3 million gallons of increase of water that we used, and that could be contributed to the week that we had. People dripping their faucets and having leaks and stuff like that. It's hard to quantify exactly how much and what happened. And the reason is because when the SCADA went off, we would lose our data. We wouldn't be able to see it. So it was a constant battle. I'd also like to highlight or point out last month's water loss. We had some data in there. We left it blank because we didn't have the sufficient data. We went back and tried to recreate that. But since we were doing the AMI project and we had different meters going in and coming out, we were unable to substantiate how much water. It was showing us we had a 20% water loss. We went out and looked for leaks. We didn't find any. This last month we had 11.7. So without doing anything, it automatically went down. So it was obviously the data was insufficient to produce good quality numbers. So I wanted you guys to know about that. I also want to let you guys know about the AMI project. We're getting close. We have been working really hard to get this pushed all the way through. Had a meeting recently, which with the contractors, engineers, we're estimating 2 weeks to be complete with the majority of the project. We just have some mitigation to do with some of the meters, trying to figure out the best way to get everyone's signal and reading. Also want to put a selfless plug in for the customer portal. It's out there for all of our customers to use. We are getting, the customers are getting leak alerts when they have them, burst alerts. And if they go in the customer portal, they can set their own alerts and alarms how they see fit. And if you haven't been on there, I would say that you should probably do so and really look at it. It's really good information. We have about 30 meters left to install. Without getting into the nitty-gritty, we have a lack of, due to COVID, we have a lack of the meters that we're supposed to be getting. We're going to be putting in composite meters for the remainder of the last 10 or 15 until the new meters come. And once they come, then they'll be replaced with the metal meters that we require. As far as COVID goes, the team is doing well. Everyone's still being efficient and wearing masks and keeping safe distances. And about the ice storm. Okay, so we prepared for an ice storm in Texas, not one in Minnesota. And so part of our problem is when we wrapped and did things to different pipes, we did so that would be sufficient for 0 degrees for, however long. We did not have a heat source. Once it gets so cold, you have to have a heat source in some of these. And when I say heat source, is we had everything wrapped and covered, and there's different techniques and things that you can use for this type of winter. It is not something that we've seen or unprecedented. We do have protocols on how we go about and fix and repair things. And there were cities much larger than us that had really well-prepared cities that they were out of power and they were out of water, and their amazing plan went out the window when it came to it. And so with that, I also want to highlight that we had, I wrote it down here, 243 man-hours during that for the utility department alone, just the utility department. So we worked our tails off, and the last thing I would like to say is all the appreciation. The water department is humbled and very appreciative of of the Public Works and Stephen and Eric and everyone in Public Works and everyone in admin and everyone on council that offered your help, everyone on the Water Commission offered your help. But I also want to specifically say thank you to the mayor. We were down a guy. He left and was unable to be with us throughout the remainder. Mr. Thompson, Mayor Thompson stepped in and he helped us. He was there on the ground with us for the majority of everything we were going through, and he offered his home. And I just want to personally thank you, and I appreciate it. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you. Right side, questions, comments?
Again, thank you so much for all your hard work. I'm hearing great things about the My Meter Info portal. I'm also hearing that sometimes there's a lag in information. Can you speak to that a little bit?
So we're going to do some mitigation. So yes, do you have any specifics? So there's a couple things that we could get into.
Just saying that they get a leak alerts several hours after it's occurred, those kinds of things.
Yes, so it doesn't automatically give you a leak alert just because you have a leak. It waits to make sure that it's a leak, so it waits some time before you get those alerts. Also, there's a lag between when the meters are sending the data and then when it gets transferred over. And so there is some leeway time in that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sir.
Outstanding work. And oh, by the way, there's no way you could have prepared for a Minnesota winter because the water infrastructure is completely different there. The pipe's got to be 6 feet underground, et cetera. We don't have that here. With what you had to work with compared to everybody around us, I don't want to go to the whole state of Texas, but it's probably pretty close to that. Outstanding work.
Thank you, sir.
Ma'am.
I agree, especially when someone walked out on you, which I think is just crass. And again, I will accept this could be operator error, but much like what Lisa said, if you have the portal and you have the alert set up and you get no notice that it's raining inside your house, it's a bit of a problem. So.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. There's going to be some things that we're still trying to figure out. If you have those things, please email me. If you get contacted with anyone that has that information, please let us know because we're still learning the whole system as we're going as well.
Of course. No, I mean, it wasn't anything I could tell you at the time. I mean,
Oh,
I
yeah,
didn't feel like you
obviously.
needed to hear it at the time. I'm just saying that, yes, and I know also from Jesse that you guys are working hard with AMI because maybe they're dropping the ball, I don't know. But it's still a great concept, and I look forward to actually knowing when I have a leak while it's leaking. So that'd be great.
Yes, ma'am.
But thank you for camping out and all.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Thank you. Next up is item 8G, library.
Good evening. I'm on. Okay, I'm sorry. Just a couple of things. We had a very successful estate planning seminar in February, just before the big storm. Jim Voller, because it was so well attended, we had a big waiting list, and Jim Voller has agreed to do another one in March. And so we're still keeping the numbers down to 70 people. So if anyone who's listening would like to attend that, you need to go ahead and let us know really soon because 45 people are on that list already. My report is much quieter than those of these heroic departments for whom I have the utmost admiration. I saw some really tired-looking faces on Monday morning. They didn't call on me to do a lot of help. I think they thought maybe I would just try to read a story or check out Frozen to them. But I am extremely proud to be part of this team of people sitting right up here. They're just wonderful, and they exemplify our motto, a way of life, not just a place to live. So.
Thank you, ma'am. Right side, questions, comments?
Great seminar, great snacks.
Thank you.
You didn't, I didn't hear you mention it. You may have mentioned it, I didn't hear, but it's March 25th is when.
Yes, it's March 25th at 6:30. It will be in the community center also.
Next up is item number 9, city engineer project status report.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. On the 2252 Waterline project, we're continuing to work with TxDOT. They've issued 100% plans. Our proposed solution, conflict resolution still is viable. Cost estimates we've provided. They have another meeting this Friday, and we'll be attending that to hear as other utilities are being mobilized to relocate their utilities, make sure we don't run into other conflicts. So we're continuing to monitor that. Next step is again, would be to prepare bid documents, prepare the detailed plans and bid documents to construct the actual improvements. So we'll keep you posted with any progress from TxDOT. So second, 2252 wastewater project, contractor is mobilized. They're beginning their preliminary clearing, laying bedding material on NACO Loop, clearing areas, and beginning some preparation for the road bores. They've been delayed somewhat with the winter weather, the suppliers on the piping, but we're expecting pipe delivery either late this week or early next week. And so I would expect the first pipe to go in the ground probably late next week. But they're working and moving forward with that. Continuing with the other contracts, working through those and get that underway. So that's all I have. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, sir. Left side questions for our engineer? Sir, sir, ma'am? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 10A, or excuse me, item 10, City Commission Committee reports. First of all, item A is Planning and Zoning. And we have Chair of Planning and Zoning, Dr. Miller. Had a meeting since the last time we've met. Sir, you have the floor.
Good evening, council. The main thing I bring forward to council from Planning and Zoning is recommendations from Planning and Zoning Commission for acceptance of 5 total variances, all which relate to signage, ordinance 55, and they're actually small changes that have been requested by Kim Wood from the Garden Ridge Market Days organization, if you will. The first variance was for a banner sign at 2252 and 3009. And they need a variance more for a time limitation, or a time limitation that's built into the ordinance, which they will exceed. And the way I understand it is they want that banner to be up for 7 days, the week of, a week before the market every month. And there's 12 months, 7 days times 12 months is, I think, a total of 84 days. The ordinance is written for 30 days total. So we need an exception to that, or variance for that, to leave it up for a week for the whole year instead of just, 30 days in a row. The second is for 2 feather type signs. The variances are for, they have 2 feather signs instead of 1 as it's written in the ordinance. And so they need a variance to have 2 instead of the 1. You're supposed to have 1 per property road frontage, and they want 2 per property road frontage. The property involved is unique in that the signs are actually I think it's 500 some feet apart, which is definitely sufficient distance between them, and would actually be longer than 1 property, but the way it's platted is just 1 property. The second variance for those signs is that they request a variance for height. In the original ordinance, the height limitation was 8 feet, and the type of sign they want to use, and again, it's just for a 24-hour period, is actually 14 feet instead of 8 feet. The third set of variances, variances number 4 and 5, for banner signs at the property at the Northeast Bible Church. And again, it's for 2 signs instead of 1. The signs are far enough apart that it actually it doesn't meet the letter. It meets the intent of the ordinance, but it doesn't technically meet the way it's written. Let's put it that way. And again, it's a 30-day thing. By the time you multiply it over 12 months, it ends up being more than 30 days. So we bring you recommendation for variance number 1, the time limitation, the banner at the 3009 and 2252. It was unanimously recommended that we approve that. I'm looking to the city administration. We bring them separately or all 3 together, or how you want to do this?
I believe that since they were separate recommendations taken by the Planning and Zoning Commission, they need to be voted on separately by the City Council.
Okay, so the first recommendation is for the banner sign at 3009 and 2252. Our recommendation was unanimous. Any questions about that variance that we recommend approval?
So council, also the petitioners in the audience, if you have any questions that you'd like to go directly to her. But starting on the left side, questions for planning and zoning on this first request?
No, not on the first one.
Sir? Sir? Ma'am? Okay. So that said, on the first one, the recommendation to approve from planning and zoning, can I get a motion?
I move to approve approval of ordinance variance request per the first item presented.
Okay, a motion from place 5. Can I get a second?
Second.
Place 4 with a second. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous? Okay, sir, the second one?
The second variance, which has 2 parts, again, is for the feather signs. I think they have another name. One was for the height, another one was for the 2 per property. Again, with the caveat that the properties has long frontage on 2252. That variance was also approved unanimously by the Planning and Zoning Commission. You have questions for myself about that one?
Okay, and to be clear, they offered the recommendation, they didn't approve it. But questions, again, you have the petitioner here as well. Starting over on the right side, questions for either planning and zoning or the petitioner. Sir.
Doctor, what, the 1 week period that we're talking about, is that 1-1 or 1-2? Which one of these recommendations?
I'm not sure I'm following you, sir.
Or is this going to be all one motion?
This one.
Nancy, can you?
Yes, go ahead, City Administrator.
The banner signs are requested for 7 days prior to the market.
I understand.
The 2 feather signs there is no request for any time on those signs because they will be placed the day of the market. And the
Okay, I
ordinance
understand, okay.
currently allows a 30-day period.
All right.
Anything else, sir? Any other questions?
Yeah, okay, why do you need 7 days 4 times a month? That's a little bit excessive, I think. We're trying to minimize the signs.
To be clear, this one doesn't, the one that you're looking at now, number 2, isn't a 7-day, as our city administrator said, it's just the day of.
The only variances for the 2 flag banners is allowing the 2 banners on the frontage of the Northeast Bible Church property as well as the 14.5-foot height, which exceeds our 8-foot height requirement.
I understand that. Now, which one are we talking about where we have a one-week banner out there? 4
You've
times a
got
month?
that on the motion that the council just
Oh, we
approved.
just approved that. I see.
And then you
Okay.
have that one also will be on the,
Number 3.
the last variance,
But to be clear,
or the
this
last
one is just for the
recommendation.
day of the event. Sir, do you have anything? Ma'am?
I have a comment, may I make a comment?
Absolutely.
That, again, as I've stated a number of times, we approach each variance on an individual basis, but I do know that in the past for properties across, which you're aware of, Dr. Miller, property across the street, across Nacogdoches, that because of the expanse of that property when it was for sale, we allowed multiple signs for that. So based on that, I believe that these would be legitimate requests, because like you said, they're 500 and some feet apart.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's, that said, get a motion to approve the second of these petitions?
Move to approve?
Place 3 to approve. And can I get a second? Place 2. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimously approved. And sir, the third one?
The third one are also some, I guess we call them banner signs. These are, the variance was for 2 signs instead of 1 again, because the original ordinance only speaks to 1. And this is the other one with the day limit. By the time you use them over the course of a year, it'll exceed 30 days.
This will be for placement of the banners 7 days prior to the market, the 7 days preceding the market.
So left side, questions, comments, either P and Z or to the petitioner?
No.
Sir?
Don't really have a question, that's a little bit excessive to me. I don't know if we need a sign up there 4 times a month for a week at a time. So, but the planning and zoning voted on that?
I'm not following you 4 times a month.
Once a month.
One week,
Okay, that's right.
Councilman. It's 1 week for
Okay.
12 months.
But you approved that?
Well, they recommend approval to you, to y'all. Anything else? Ma'am? Okay, so that said, get a motion on the third part of this variance.
I move to approve.
Second the motion.
Place 4 with a second from place 5. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you, sir, for going through all that. And now to part 2, monthly activity update.
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Your monthly activity
Oh, the monthly activity chart. We discussed, again, the draft ordinance. We've got one more go-around with the technical committee. It's been submitted to the city attorney for her last bit of input, well, hopefully her last bit of input. And the technical committee is going to look at it, and before we pass it on to the commissioners to have their first peek at it, so to speak. That's where we are. We got a technical committee tentatively scheduled for sometime next week. By the time we get through with everything, I'm thinking it will be probably June, which will be coming right at about 3 years. We've been working on it. Questions, sir?
Let's have
council,
questions or
excuse me.
comments for planning and zoning.
Not on that issue.
Do you have something else?
I misunderstood. I thought we were going to go back to Ms. Wood's petition for one more moment. So I just wanted to go back to that.
I'm sorry, you approved all 3 of them. Do you want
I know that. I had a comment.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay. I was just going to recommend, to be sure to recommend to Ms. Wood that she get the permit affixed to each of your signs, and that you call them either the sail, teardrop, feather, or bow banner, for example, per the ordinance. But be sure to get the permits attached to each of them. Thank you.
I also left out, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I also left out the caveat that we approve it based on the ordinance. When we approve those variances based on the ordinance, it's for 1 year. They have to be renewable on a 1 year basis, so we can see how things work out. And if it doesn't work out, next year, we get another shot at it.
Gotcha. And forgive my ignorance, but I didn't know that she would have to attach those to the banners.
Well, Ms. Kane is telling me I'm mistaken. I was just referencing a particular section of the ordinance that I thought I was reading properly, under 9A, identification of signs. That's all. I was basing it on that. Obviously, if I'm mistaken, that's my...
Permits are not required on temporary signs.
Okay, but it
So-
doesn't say temporary in the, so I'm glad we've clarified that.
Yes.
It doesn't say temporary in the ordinance.
There is another area that does talk about the temporary
Okay.
and the permits.
Ma'am, anything else?
No, thank you.
Sir? Ma'am? Thank you very much, Dr. Miller. Next up is Corps Commission, and Chairman Holly. Welcome.
Good evening. We did not have a meeting in February, so our next meeting is March, next week. And so there's nothing to really report about today.
Okay. Does anybody have
Any
any questions or
questions?
comments for the Corps Commission? Ma'am? Sir? Sir? Ma'am?
No.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right,
Thanks for
thank
being
you.
here. 10C, Water Commission, Chairman Valdez.
Good evening, Council. Water Commission also did not meet, mainly due to the weather. We weren't able to get the packet together for the commission to meet. Our next meeting is the 23rd of March. That's all I have.
Questions or comments left side for water? Sir? Sir? Ma'am? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And next is Wildlife Management Advisory Commission. I don't see Chairman Krasinski here, but I do see the vice. No, I knew they had no meeting, but did they have anything? Oh, that's what he said. Sir, you don't have to go up there if you want to do a wave off. He's waving off. Okay, let the record show he waved it off. And next is Parks Committee. And Mr. Chamberlain is not able to be here tonight, and so he asked Dr. Miller to represent him.
Parks Committee did not meet this month either, nor did the chairs meet. We did have a mini Arbor Day, I guess you'd call it, cleanup type thing during the month of February at Paul Davis Park. We worked side by side with the robust participation of the Lions Club and got quite a bit of work done up at Paul Davis Park, clearing up some of the area over near the meadow. For some reason or other, Public Works was busy towards the latter part of the month of February and wasn't able to pick up the debris that we gathered. It's quite a bit of debris. But we could not have done anything that we did out at Paul Davis Park without the cooperation and the support of Public Works. They've been stellar in their support of what we try to do, and we look forward to working with them going into the spring.
Thank you, sir. Before you go, Volunteer Garden Ridge.
Sir?
Volunteer Garden Ridge?
It's a wave.
Giving a wave off.
A wave off.
Yeah, obviously with COVID and also with all the other stuff going on, but we still did have some volunteers and log some hours. Ms. Kane, go ahead.
Volunteer hours. Total of 234 hours. It breaks down to 10 hours for the ladies who stuff the water bills. 110 volunteer hours in the library, and 114 volunteer hours for the Parks Committee.
Great, thank you very much. Moving on to item 11, the updates, COVID update. A few things that are pretty late breaking we should talk about. First of all, nationwide, CDC is still working on the 10-day quarantining and 7-day if you get a test after 5. That hasn't changed. Obviously, people that are being vaccinated now and what they've determined and what they're putting on as information now is if you're vaccinated, you don't need to quarantine if you meet 3 criteria. And the 3 criteria are 2 weeks or longer since you had the second shot, and it'll end up being the first shot when you start working the Johnson & Johnson. The second criterion is can't be longer than 3 months. So in 3 months, we're all going to be asked the question, okay, what do we do now? So hopefully they'll figure that out in the next couple of months. And then the last one is you're not exhibiting any symptoms. So if all of that, if you qualify under all 3 of those, if you're vaccinated and you come in contact with somebody that has COVID, you do not have to quarantine. And it's actually been a factor for our employee we have. There's 3 vaccines approved now. I mentioned that, and moving forward with that. In Texas, the emergency declaration was redone on February 4th. We expect that the governor will probably do it again within the next day, but it hasn't been done for March yet. And then the big news is Executive Order GA34, written yesterday and effective March 10th, supersedes Executive Orders 17, 25, 29, 31, and 32. It doesn't supersede 10 and 13, but they don't really apply to what our operations here, what we do. The long and short of it is opens up Texas 100%. Removes a mask mandate, removes public gathering restrictions. So the waivers that I've had to do don't have to do anymore, and I've notified some people on this and opening up Texas to 100%, notifying businesses as well. It also removes jail time and penalties if you don't wear a mask, allows county judges to have some authority if they are in a trauma service area that goes above 15% in hospitalization. So remember, we were in that, and just by coincidence, right before, on February 17th, Trauma Service Area P, which we're in, went below 15 again, and so all of Trauma Service Area P, to include our county, went to 75%. Bars could be open, all that kind of stuff. But that whole Trauma Service Area thing has not gone away with Order 34, because if the trauma service areas go back above 15%, the judges in each county have the prerogative to go to 50%, not less than 50% on their restrictions on businesses. Now, it doesn't provide for the other kind of restrictions, surgeries and all that other stuff that was in the previous one, but it does provide for the restriction on businesses. And that's up to the numbers and then the county taking that. And in the governor's Executive Order 34, no mention at all of cities this time. Every time he's mentioned cities this time, he didn't mention cities really at all, which was a little bit problematic, and I'll talk about that in a second, but nevertheless, it's the way it is. In the county, if you recall, Executive Order SK03 was the last one that mandated business have public safety plans and mandated masks. As of 4 hours ago, the county had still not rescinded that, effective the 10th, and I would expect they will, but they don't absolutely have to, because in that SK03, it actually said that it could be rescinded by an order from the governor. So there's an implication that on the 10th, that goes away, but typically to keep it clean, you would still rescind it, and so I would expect that that's going to happen. Now, keep in mind, everything is status quo until the 10th, so because this doesn't take effect until the 10th. So we're still in the 75% and the mask mandate and all the other things. I'll tell you how this affects us in a minute, but also talking about the county, I've spoken to the county half a dozen times now about vaccination clinics here. Interestingly enough, the county has, and they actually put out a announcement to the public that they are concentrating a lot more on the second vaccine. So much so that they've kind of said, all right, we'll worry about first vaccines here in a little bit. Let's work these second vaccines. So what they have said, and what they've told me a few times now, is not until late March or early April will they even start to look at first vaccines again. When they do that, then they're also going to look to bring them to communities, and we are on the list to have a clinic here. The other thing I'd tell you is the county publishes numbers, and we get them, and they go out to the public, and they've got all the COVID numbers. And I feel compelled to tell you that you need to take the numbers with a grain of salt. And the reason I say that is because I had COVID, and I was reported as having COVID, and so did my wife. And nobody has ever called us and said, hey, are you recovered so we can take you off the active list? I called the county and asked them about this, and I was told they don't follow up, and they don't have much of a system to follow up. We'll talk about it in a minute, but there is no follow-up with doctors. If you don't have a severe case of COVID, you do not go back to the doctor when you've recovered. And again, that has a plan what I'm about to talk about when it comes to the city. But nevertheless, if you don't go back, you don't get a test again and anything else, what ends up happening is there's just an assumption, I guess after a period of time, they may take you off the active list. But there's not a lot of science to those numbers in my personal experience and when I asked them. So take what you're reading with a grain of salt. Now, turning to the city. We still have Ordinance 227, Public Health Emergency Declaration in place. Tomorrow, I'm going to rescind the RV amendment. Remember, we only did one amendment to that, and we're going to rescind the RV amendment. We're having some issues. It doesn't seem that it's necessary anymore. Things have really quieted down. Businesses are open, all this other stuff, but we're actually having some issues with it, discussions with our police department. I'm going to go ahead and rescind that. And that was a provision in that order. Remember, though, that also has a 30-day delay. So when I rescind it, it doesn't take effect as being rescinded for 30 days. It gives people 30 days to, if they happen to have an RV in their front yard, they have 30 days to find a place to put it. But just let you know that's going to happen, and you'll see that being announced tomorrow. As you've seen and heard, library, parks, city hall still being cleaned. The bookings in the community event center and park pavilions are still happening, and effective the 10th, we're gonna pull the signs that say that 10 people and all that stuff is gonna go away. But we still will be encouraging people to engage in CDC safe practice guidelines with distancing, household groups, masks, that kind of thing, even after 34 is in effect. Again, 34 means there's no need to authorize any of the activities that we have been doing in the past. The one thing I will tell you is that we've investigated. There's some language in 34 that talks about businesses are able to require masks. And by the way, when I've talked to some businesses to tell them this is coming up next week, I told them that they still have the prerogative, and she's out of here right now, but I also communicated with the market manager, and she's going to, and she has the prerogative to, maintain masks. She can mandate masks for employees, people that are by extension working with and for her, as well as she can mandate it for attendees, and she plans to do that for the foreseeable future. The interesting thing about that is enforcement becomes a little bit weird because you can, as a business and what ends up being the city as well, you can mandate it, but you can't, the law doesn't provide, and in fact, the governor put it in his order, the law does not provide for penalties and jail time and that kind of thing. So where it comes into play is if you have a business, or for instance, at the market, if somebody refuses to do it, that they can be asked to leave. And if they refuse, and it's analogous to smoking in a place that you're being told not to. You'd be asked to leave. If you refuse to leave, now you're trespassing. And that's where the enforcement can come in, is on trespassing. We went around and around to make sure, but we intend for the foreseeable future to maintain all the practices with our staff, because it's protecting us from having an entire department have to go home. So we will maintain the mask mandate with staff and 6 feet and social distancing and all that stuff. We've been very successful with it, and we intend to continue that. And we also have agreed that we can require anybody that comes into City Hall to also do that. Now, people aren't wearing them right now because we also have the thing, you're 6 feet and you're static and all that. But if somebody's coming into City Hall, we're going to be maintaining that they still need to wear their mask. If they're not, we'll ask them to wear them. We'll have them available if they don't happen to have one. And if they get indignant about it, we'll ask them to leave. So that's for the foreseeable future, just until things settle down and we see how we're moving forward with that. The other thing, you received a copy of our slight change to the policy, the COVID policy for our staff, and you received it just so you would be kept informed. What happened was I had COVID. When I was recovered, I went to the doctor, and the doctor says, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I need to get a test. I need to be negative so I can go back to the office." And they said, no. The CDC explicitly states what the definition of recovered is, and there's a fever gone more than 24 hours with no assistance of the fever being gone, exhibiting no other symptoms, and 10 days after the onset of the symptoms. It's very explicit. And it also says that it is not test-based at that point. So not only do they not want you to go back to the doctor, but they also don't want you to get another test. Because they also say that people that have been positive could be testing positive because of it's in their RNA still for another 3 months. I didn't know that. And a lot of us didn't know that. And so we were going on the, hey, if you get it, we don't want to see you again until you get a negative test, and nothing could be further from the truth. So I was kind of the test case because I was the one that was getting ready to come back and wanted the negative test, and they said, don't even try it. You need to abide by what the CDC says. So that and some things happening with the vaccines, and I already told you, we decided that we needed to do a couple of things. We needed to amplify, we needed to clarify and amplify, so all of us on staff and all the departments were operating in the same sheet of music, but also to make sure that everybody knows that this is a moving target. And so what we prepared, I kind of farmed through all of the websites, and what we prepared has all the updated dates on it. And we have then had discussions with the department heads to say, keep looking, and if you see a date that's newer, let us know, because it really is a moving target. And from one month to the next, who knows what the CDC is going to say is the rule for this. For instance, somebody that has COVID, once they have recovered, they pretty much have the same rules as somebody that's been vaccinated. So I, as somebody that had COVID, if I come in contact tomorrow with somebody that has COVID now, I don't have to quarantine. As long as I'm not exhibiting, it's been over 2 weeks, it's been less than 3 months, and I'm not exhibiting any symptoms. Same rules that apply to vaccinated folks. And who knows what it's going to be next month and the month after and the month after. But that's why you were sent that, because we thought it was important that you would know what we were doing with city staff. Does anybody have any comments, questions on any of the updates and any of the stuff that's going on with COVID? Starting on the right side. Sir. Ma'am.
I'm happy we're respecting the mask mandate. They've also shown the incidence of flu is considerably down this year, obviously contributing it to mask and distancing. So that helps everyone, and I'm glad we're respecting that.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 11A2, funding expenditures and all of that with, first check-in with Ms. Ford. And she gave me the head nod, or the head shake, excuse me. And then also, Mr. Steinmetz, with any of the expenditures and any of the things that we're doing around the facilities. Do you have any updates on that? I think you kind of already talked about it during your other update. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, but we narrowed down some companies for the automatic doors and the water softeners. So that's the big items that's going to be happening soon. The smaller items were just basically some more flush valves, automatic faucets and stuff in the library, public workshop, and the community center. So that's the extent of last month's, but we have narrowed down some of the bigger items.
Great. Thank you so much for that. And obviously, we got derailed a little bit with this as well. Questions for the funding or the stuff that you see on the slides here, starting left side?
No.
Sir, ma'am. Okay. Okay, and then the last one is always the catch-all. If any of you have any actions that you believe need to be taken related to COVID, anybody? We always put that on there in case you do have something. Okay. Next up is item 11, 11C, and it's Mayor's Projects Communication Report.
No.
Did I skip something? Oh, B. Oh, yeah, and I do not want to skip B, believe me. So first up is Comal ISD events. It's Councilwoman Swint and Councilman Arvidsson.
I'm still working on it. Didn't hear back from my Comal ISD contact again. Todd said he may hammer on him a little bit. But in the meantime, Marissa and I have been looking at what other cities do. There's a couple different approaches to, kind of sharing community events with citizens that we are exploring.
Thanks. Anything to add? Okay, and then 11B2, sorry about that. Animal foster program, Councilwoman Bauer.
Yes, last month, of course, Ms. Swint brought that forward, and personally, I'd like to work on it. I'd like to work on it with Ms. Swint, if possible.
Okay.
Okay. We had a meeting established, a citizen had reached out and had a meeting actually established with Ms. Kane and Mr. Lohman. But obviously situation, we had to postpone everything, so we're hoping to meet. And we have a contact person in San Marcos as well. We're hoping to meet just to even see, feasibility of the program, any program we can possibly institute, feasibility of it, obviously the legality of it, what we, our liabilities and so on. And we're obviously welcoming Eric's input. We don't want to add to Eric's workload or anything like that. This would be something we want to be sure that doesn't disrupt, but it does offer a chance to maybe help take care of the animals or help foster the animals. We don't have a mission statement put together yet, but again, working with the citizen that approached us and working, of course, with Ms. Kane and Mr. Lohman and with Lisa, we'd like to work on something and come forward with facts and figures and concepts.
Understand you don't have it solidified, but what's your vision? What are you attempting to do?
Well, fostering animals. I mean, I know we don't have that high incidence of dogs and cats coming through here necessarily, but I think also to help take care of the animals, even if we have to transport, there'd be liability issues, I understand, but even transporting the animals, for example, that are acquired by the city, transporting them to our vet that does the spaying and neutering for us, things like that. Anything that we can do to become involved in, fostering and helping with the animal program. Again, not stepping on Eric's toes, not increasing city liability or anything like that. I don't know if Ms. Swint has input on concept.
You know, one of the other things we talked about too, and we haven't figured, well, we're just getting started, so we don't have any kind of solution yet. We always have citizens who want to exercise the animals, who want to go up and visit them. That's one of the first things that my daughter mentioned to me when I got on council is, can we do something with the animals up there? She likes to go up and visit and look at them. You know, we currently don't have a great space to exercise those animals, one that feels safe for everybody, being so close to 3009. But that's also on the list to work on.
Anything else?
So we're obviously in the conceptual stage, but we'd, like permission to go forward and investigate it. And if we find that it's, say, too much of a city liability or something like that, we can also always do it privately. If there's an animal through other resources, not necessarily even city animals. But if we just make people aware of our program, because we are so animal-centric here, and we do such a good job taking care of animals and all that. We don't want it to become a situation where everybody hears, that, oh, garden rage, dump your dog there. We don't want that. So we would work with people who have more experience in the area as well and find out, what can we do? Maybe we can even create new concepts, new ideas for the generalized program, if you will. But keeping in mind always the liability to the city and not interfering with Eric.
Thank you. You all have anything, questions or anything to add to it? Anything else? Yes, ma'am. The thing that I would say is the liability is huge, because all it takes is somebody loses their animal and they're out of town, and then they where's my dog? What do you mean my dog is at this? And then what happens if something happens to the dog, or the dog does something, and there's a lot that we have to be very concerned about. The thing that Councilwoman Swint mentioned about walking them or taking care of them, I'll tell you that a couple of years ago, and right now we're having problems with, the volunteer stuff because of the situation, the pandemic. But one of the things that I talked to Public Works and to our Animal Services office about was getting some folks to help take care of the animals. Not necessarily taking them off site or anything, but even, and so yeah, it's kind of some space there, right? Because it may be going up there and, somebody's so inclined to go to the cat room. I don't know if you've ever been to the cat room, but going up there because it needs to be maintained. Same thing with the dog area, and then maybe extension of that could still be, under the umbrella of the city. I'm not saying that what you're saying it won't work, but but your comment about just walking them or my thing, I went up there during the storm and just checked on them. I wanted them to know that that people were paying attention, and anything like that might help. And it would be a good experience. You can tell him I said this. It'd be a good experience for Mr. Lohman to work with some volunteers. He wasn't excited about it the first time I told him. That's great. Okay, so yeah, the concern that the city administrator had is that we had been talking about it, and I was involved, and we didn't want to have 3 people off of council involved. But I'll step away from it, so it's all yours, and we'll keep it on the agenda. If you don't want it on next time's agenda because you don't have any development, then just let us know. But otherwise, expect it to be on next.
Okay, that's great. And we're in the process, and we may even have an update by now. We're in the process of working with our citizen who approached us initially as well.
Great.
Setting up another meeting next week.
Great. Thank you. Okay, now we'll go to 11C. Mayor's projects. First of all, in the communication report, the city sign, I made an appeal because they're turning up the heat. The TxDOT rep is turning up the heat to have us move the sign. I made an appeal that I really wanted to talk to TxDOT about it and why. And they were very reasonable about it and said, yeah, let's have a meeting. And then I got COVID, and they called, and our city administrator said, well, he's not really available right now. And then my first day back, my first authorized day back from COVID was Tuesday in the storm when we were outside. So, we have plausible deniability that I haven't talked to them about this yet, but time's running out, and I'm going to have to talk to them probably within the next few work days. In fact, we're talking about dumpsters. That's one thing we get on the sign, and I have gotten feedback when we put the dumpsters are available. People respond to that. And then the communication report, the other one is a communication that I'll be making tomorrow. Council received an email, a couple of emails actually, regarding some issues with Nextdoor. And we cannot talk about it because it's not on the agenda, but when I respond, you'll all get a copy of it and you'll see what we've run to ground on this, okay? Sorry, I can't do any better than that, but we can't really dig into it. And we can then put it on next agenda and gladly talk about it, but I will address it. I think the answers are, I think you'll think the answers are acceptable, but we can't talk about it now. Then Mayor's Projects, number 2, Citizen Contact Report, give some kudos to some people. We have one citizen that wrote a one-page letter with a whole bunch of examples of some signs, they were advertising signs, there were political signs, there were a bunch of other stuff, and he did a pretty good job of pointing a lot of that stuff out to us. And then the PD and the chief did a great job of going out there and investigating them. Some of them had been gone and others hadn't been, and we corrected it on the spot. But that was a great response, and that was through a letter written to me. We had another citizen that had a water issue and then had trouble with the report-it system. It wasn't recognizing him, and he had some issues. He brought that to Mayor's Coffee with the Mayor. I'm doing it the second Monday of every month now because of COVID. We're kind of easing back into it. But Kat and Jacob collectively, I said Kat and her eyes got big. Kat and Jacob did a great job of helping this citizen out, and they fixed all his issues, got him hooked up, and he then circled back with me and said he was really impressed with the two of them and how they made it so he could be connected to this again. And then this is a little bit late, but I wasn't here last month, so the Public Works did a great job ensuring that the area in front of some of the residences on Shanetal, and Mr. Kniper's here, so he can attest to that. They did a great job fixing that, and we got a letter from the Knipers thanking us for that. And I just wanted to thank Public Works. They did a great job that I think will last a lot longer than what had been done in the past. So I appreciate all the departments when we get the citizen contacts. Any questions or comments on any of those? Okay, next one is item number 12, discussion of future agenda items. Starting over the right side, anything you want to see on the next one? Sir.
Last month, we had a citizen speak about excessive speed, or not excessive speed, the speed limits in the city. I would like to put that on the agenda just as a discussion item next month.
Okay. Sir, anything? Ma'am, anything?
Yes, move forward the animal foster program with Bauer and Swint, please.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's already going to stay. Anything else? Okay, next up is item 13, citizen comment. And remember, you did not have to sign up for this one. So step up, your name, your address, doesn't count your 2 minutes. When you're done, please go over to the table that's to your left and write down your information.
John L. Hawley, 9916 Trophy Oaks Drive. I want to thank the police chief, the police department, and EMS for coming by to scare the bejesus out of me because they checked on my neighbor. I mean, they showed up, truck and car and everything up and down the street, and 3 neighbors around us are saying, "What's going on? What happened? What happened? What happened?" And so we had to call them all up and say, "How you doing?" Again. But thank you, Chief. All right, that's all I have.
Thanks, sir.
Brenda Reynolds, 20525 Wall Lane. A couple of comments. First of all, I do want to thank everybody for all your hard work for getting the city through the Arctic winter we had. So thank you all very much. I also want to say there's a lot of conversation about communication. I just want to clarify, there actually was a ton of communication going on that week within the city. On social media among the citizens. There was all kinds of communication happening, whether it was Moms of Garden Ridge or Keep Garden Ridge Positive or whatever social media site, there was a ton of communication. I think the point is there was no communication from the city. I appreciate all the communication that Lisa put on there. So in, the interest of just trying to learn and, improve for next time, I think that's the point. It's not that there was not a way to communicate. There was a ton of communication. There was just no communication from the city on all of the platforms that were out there. The city website is great. I recently discovered it. I actually signed up for the alerts. I need to fix it because all I get are the alerts for the Lego League, so I don't know how to do it yet, so I'm gonna get better at it. But, if the citizens aren't, if your customers aren't going there, then you gotta go to where your customers are. Is the only point. And then the last thing I want to say is I'm the citizen that brought up the Foster League and our foster program, and Eric's lack of excitement for working with citizens is pretty apparent to me. So I am looking forward, though, to working with everybody and working with Eric, and hopefully we can change his mind on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? It doesn't look like we have anyone else. We'll close out item 13 and move on to item 14, reports, comments from mayor and city council members limited to the things that are on this list. Starting left side, anything on this list?
No.
Yeah. Sir.
I think we've covered it, but just so everybody knows, and Lisa brought it up as well, Canal ISD, their schools took a lot of damage. There's one elementary school that they can't even go back into right now. So this is going to be an ongoing issue as we come into the spring and summer. Just so we're aware of it, there are going to be pipe repairs and all kinds of crazy stuff that's going to have to go on over the next few months.
Thank you. Sir. Ma'am? Next up is item 15, the executive session, and we don't have any updates on either one of these, so I'm going to cancel the executive session and move on to item 16. Since we didn't have the executive session, there's nothing that would be actions out of the executive session. So moving on to item number 17, the adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
After you, man.
Yeah, I heard place 4. I did, I really heard. Can I get a second?
I second and third it. You can't hear me, remember, Brian? Remember you.
Place 5 with the second. Any further discussion, questions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. We are adjourned at 9:08 p.m. Thank you very much.